then when they come out, they can come
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled mayor and council meeting for the town of Berlin. It's Monday, June 12th, 2023. Please apologize or accept our apology for being 19 minutes late. We were discussing our FY24 contracts in work session with the Berlin Fire Company and Berlin Fire Company EMS. So typically before our meetings, we begin with a moment of silence as well as the Pledge of Allegiance. This evening, I do want to dedicate our moment of silence, as we've done sometimes in the past, to Corporal Glenn Hilliard, who was killed in the line of duty 12 months ago today. This morning, around 11 o'clock a.m., we did, Councilmember Green and I attended, and Chief Downing spoke at a dedication for Corporal Glenn Hilliard for Route 611. The Stephen Decatur Highway has been renamed in his, or dedicated in his honor to help keep his legacy alive for our community. He was a valiant public servant, served here with the Berlin Police Department as well as the Berlin Fire Company. So he was known to many in this room and definitely somebody that we miss every day here in the town of Berlin. So join me in a moment of silence followed by the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on our agenda item number 1 is the consent agenda with the approval of the work session minutes and the regular session minutes from 5/22.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to take out the regular session minutes of 5/22 out of the consent agenda and table for review.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Worst.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nichols. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, let the record reflect that the regular session minutes have been pulled from the consent agenda.
Make a motion, though, to approve the work session minutes of 5/22/23.
All right, so I have a motion on the table for the work session minutes of 5/22.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nichols. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that the work session minutes of 5/22/23 pass unanimously with all council members present. All right. Councilmember Worst, do you want to revisit the regular session
Yeah,
minutes?
there seems to be a discussion item not included in them, specifically for the skate park and our discussion there between the agenda approval process for the council meetings. So I just wanted to, it's around minute 24 in the video.
Okay.
So if we can revisit that. I know that minutes aren't verbatim, but they should be accurate. So
Okay, so we'll bring that back at our next meeting.
I would appreciate it.
Okay. You'll discuss those changes with Kate?
I will, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then in the future, just so that we can maybe try to hold to our consent agenda, if we have changes or something like that and we see it in the packet, if we can get that to Kate, maybe we can clean them up and include them all together. All right, agenda item number 2, we'll start the public hearings. We have 2 of them for this evening. Agenda item 2A is ordinance 2023-03, the FY24 budget for adoption. You'll see in the packet that there is the inclusion of the FY24 budget. I want to thank all of our staff for your help compiling this year's budget. I know that the budgeting process is not fun for any of us, but our staff have been very helpful in us getting to a balanced budget for introduction. I want to thank my colleagues on the council for your input as well during our work sessions and the meetings that we've had. This really is a team budget that we have in front of us this evening for adoption. I do want to note that all of you have received the changes from the finance director regarding the budget from introduction on 5/8 until what we have here in front of us this evening. Natalie, do you want to go over those changes quickly just for the record?
Chair, if you're open.
Well, I think that way everybody knows what we have going on before we open the,
Well, before Natalie goes into that, Mayor, just as a point of order, I think that after Natalie reads these changes, since this was the first read, this one has not had a first read, somebody from the council should make a motion to amend so that we can work off the new budget.
I'll
Dave,
defer
do
to
you
our-
agree with that?
I'm not following along.
Well, okay, so on May 8th, the first read, this budget, well, I know you can't say, but this budget was read.
Right.
Then on the 8th, we got a new budget. So after Natalie reads these changes, we should probably, I believe, amend the budget so that this is the one that we work
I
off.
think that those changes should be made as amendments when the council votes.
they're included in the 6-8 copy that everybody has. Natalie's gonna go over the changes that are different from introduction to today.
Yes.
To reflect their changes that are grant amounts and stuff that have just been improved. I think that that's probably the best way to do it. What do you think?
Well, that's the easiest way, but I think since the June 8th budget was not part of the first reading, I think that those June 8th changes are amendments to the budget that was introduced at first reading, and that the council should vote on them when adopting a budget.
Okay, so,
What's the June 8th?
He meant May 8th, I believe.
well, there's a May 8th copy and a June 8th copy.
June 8th.
The June 8th
The
copy
date that it
is-
was sent out.
Correct.
So I just wanted to make sure the public was aware that there are changes.
That's what Natalie's getting ready to read.
Right, but so the process that we, are on the same
But
page.
I think when the council goes to adopt the budget, that those amendments need to be made part
Right.
of it.
Okay. That's fine. Natalie, can you go over the
Sure.
changes?
So since the budget was introduced first on May 8th, the introduced budget, so we have made several changes to general fund only. Utilities funds has not been changed. Those changes are reflected in the budget was submitted for the packet that you have received on the June 8th for today's adoption. We have not received an award for Maryland Byway grant. Do you want me to state the line items as
You can just,
reflected, or which way you would like?
what I would do is just exclude the 01, but I would
Okay,
say
line
that,
item of general fund and some 3242. There is a new amount stated there for Maryland Byway grant, in the amount of $1,160,878.
And what was the old amount?
I have the old budget.
Well, I'd like to know the old, the exact changes for all of them.
Next to it.
that's,
I don't have the old amount in front of me.
well,
It was an increase of 730,000.
but just keep in mind, this is the number we're requesting in the grant. It's not an expenditure that we're realizing without the grant.
There is a capital item for that grant that offsets that amount. There is a county grant that originally was stated above normal distribution of 465, with 122 asked for reallocation. The 122 have not been approved, so we decreased the line item 3270 in general fund in the amount of 122,000.
That was the roundabout money.
Correct.
The Parks and Recs grant was reduced because we have not received an award, so there is a reduction. The new amount stated for that grant, line item 3805. The new amount is $254,000. This amount is offset by the capital as well. The contribution from reserve amount, the total amount is increased overall, and I'm going to go through the details of why this line item 3871 is increased. Due to the changes in the salaries for the total police department, the original layouts amount was stated below. Now there's an increase of $8,970, which require us to fund that from the slots revenues. So there is an increase of $8,970. There is an increase for Rails and Trails project of $60,536 to be advanced from the capital reserve. There is an increase for Rails and Trails from prior year reserves of $39,875 as a carry forward from prior year. The capital allocation for fire company funded by ARPA, it seems like we will not be allocating this amount in fiscal 23. It is currently on fiscal 23. We just need to rebudget and carry forward to fiscal 24. So it's stated in this line item as a carry forward from ARPA of $220,000 dedicated to one-time capital project for fire company. There is an additional $42,500 to be advanced from the slots revenues to contribute to the operating budget of emergency services for additional staff personnel. So now going to the expenditures. Those line items were for the general fund revenues. The expenditures, there is a reduction in line item 5607 in administration. It's emergency operating allocation. It's a reduction of $52,500. Fire operating allocation, there is a capital line item that I just mentioned of $220. This is simple carry forward. So we have revenue from ARPA and then expenditure aside. There is no impact on the budget. There are changes in contingency due to reallocation, removal of one-time payment from the budget. So the contingency overall, a slight increase, but we require a earmark of $10,500 for Parks and Recreation grant. So you will see that line item simply changed, and there is a separate line item description under contingency of $10,500. There is an increase of $5,000 for professional services. I have received a engagement letter, and we will be required to perform a single audit for our grants for the next year. This is just an estimate. It definitely should be under $5,000. So there is an increase in professional services under 5120 department, which is finance. We have removed the purple climber and park benches, that amount of $30,000 from the parks capital outlay line item 5255. And then the grant that I have mentioned earlier, the amount changed. There is a new amount in parks and recs of $1,024,940. It's just a change of an amount because of the grant amount change.
Thank you.
That's all we have.
Thank you, and we'll add that as well as a part of our minutes, and we'll consider that when it comes time for adoption. Outside of that now, is there anything you want to highlight that we haven't covered previously regarding our budget before we start the public hearing process?
If you would like, I can give you the overall funds balances.
Yeah.
So with all the changes, the general fund balance right now is $11,502,164. Contribution from reserve is part of it. So $2,226,000 of it is contribution for reserve, is a variation of either ARPA grant carry forward, advancement from capital reserve, carry forward balance, or projects that were dedicated, I already mentioned, by ARPA. That's general fund. Electric fund is $8,013,230. Carry forward from reserve is $600,000, and there is a potential obligation for bond or loan for AMI project of $750,000, which becomes a part of the total entire budget for electric. Water fund is $2,526,370, and carry forward is pretty much all of it is ARPA reallocation to the next year of $1,255,000. Sewer fund is $5,378,310 carry forward or advancement from reserve of $1,765,100. Stormwater fund has a budget of $1,226,850 and carry forward funds or investment from reserve of $383 for the capital projects.
Thank you for that. All right, we'll open up the public hearing for ordinance. For ordinance 2023-03, and that's the adoption of the FY24 budget. Public hearing's open. Anyone that would like to address the mayor and council regarding the FY24 budget, please come forward and state your name and street name. Yes. Just come forward, right here at the table, name and street name, please.
Okay. Hi,
How are you?
everyone. I'm Sika Tucker, and I'm on South Main Street, 11 South. I was called here today with permission to speak for the South Side, and I just wanted to ask if we could compromise on the amount for the increase for the Berlin license. I know that you guys want to do like
So-
double.
Just as a matter of clarity, we're gonna have the business license fee as the next public hearing. You're welcome to talk right now.
I thought it was today.
It is.
To clarify, Mayor, the fee is not part of that public hearing.
Oh,
Oh, it's
okay,
not?
correct.
Oh.
Go ahead, so, go ahead. My apologies, thank you for that
That was
clarification.
all I wanted to say. I talked
Go
with
ahead.
everybody and people couldn't come and I was like, okay, well, I'll talk to the mayor and everybody on the South Side's behalf at least. And I just wanted to ask if that was something that we could compromise on, maybe like a 20% increase and maybe not 100%. And that was pretty much it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
My apologies, I got too confused. All right, if there's anyone else that would like to address the mayor and council during the public hearing for the budget, please come forward. Okay, we'll close the public hearing for ordinance 2023-03 and open it up for consideration by the council. And please note, at the recommendation of our legal counsel, we should adopt the FY24 budget changes that our finance director has gone over.
I just, I just have two questions.
Go ahead.
First. So I was under the impression that the 39,875 for rails and trails would have come out of FY23. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mary, but I did ask you that, and you said that was correct. So is that just a time
It
change?
carries forward.
Okay.
Am I correct there? Yeah.
We originally, when we introduced the budget, we have not included that amount. By looking closely at all of the funding that we have available from the county, from the town, application for the grant, we realized that we have not carried forward the grant match that town pledged against the 39,000.
And that was approved in FY22.
Okay. So, and the application period for rails and trails was what, May 1 to June 1?
It was June 1st. It was
Yeah.
That's
December.
what it's due.
June 1.
Okay. And the 6536 rails and trails from capital reserve, did we approve that?
Yes, via email.
An email vote?
Yep, that was an email vote. And
Good.
in clarity to that, the recommendation that I had expressed during email was that I hoped to allocate some of the ARPA funds that we're going to discuss in, let's see,
It's water.
3D, yep, item 3D. We were going to potentially reallocate that 60,000, but after meeting with Jamie and Natalie and Mary, we felt that that funding, and we'll discuss that when we get to it, was better utilized for the new well project, so.
So I guess, okay, so you want me to go ahead and make a motion to accept these amendments now, or just wait till the end?
Well, our town attorney's recommendation is to approve the,
Budget with these amendments?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say that if you're ready to approve the budget with these amendments, you would make that motion. If there's further discussion desired, you should probably do that first.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, I do what first?
Have
Have a discussion.
further
Okay.
discussion.
So the other, thank you for answering those questions. The other thing I'd like to talk about is a code enforcement or code enforcement / planning admin position. Since our last meeting, I don't know if administration and Dave and Mary, if you've had any discussion about that?
We have.
Or any, okay, so is that something that we can do this fiscal year? Are we looking to do something? Where are we on, I guess?
What we are, what we've discussed and what we're planning to do, the deputy town administrator position often usually takes on special projects. And we feel that the combination of the two, the deputy town administrator being assigned to any department really as needed, will allow Dave and Carolyn to be freed up to do some of the more code enforcement type jobs and that kind of thing.
So the 103,324 budget for the deputy town administrator is going to go instead to, or is going to stay but have a code enforcement component.
It will allow Dave and Carolyn to take on more of the code enforcement functions.
It would have
It would free them up to do that.
Yes, correct.
It would have a special projects, as Mary did in that capacity as well as a deputy, when she was in the deputy position. It had special projects that can be assigned from the town administrator. And Mary and Dave Englehart have met and believe that with the staffing of the planning department and the available funding that we have, that a combination of some assistance from a deputy role could allow them to be more freed up to be able to do some more code enforcement activities.
And will we as a body see that job description beforehand? I mean, that's part of the process, right?
Yes, beforehand, yes.
The job description exists currently. We're going to give it, because of the pay point HR,
Okay.
we'll give it a once over to make sure there's not anything that needs to be amended, and then that can always be shared with the group.
Okay. I appreciate that and all of your work on that. Thank you.
So I have a question regarding the slots revenue. I had a call from Kim Bunting, who heads up the LDC, and she has a concern that we're allocating this money, slots money to the ops, which is fine, but her concern was we haven't run it by the LDC and we have not submitted a multi-year plan, which they've repeatedly requested. And what she is asking is to get on the next agenda to speak to this issue.
What we had discussed was that we would develop a multi-year plan in conjunction with the budget. We don't need those funds until December of 2024, so we have some time.
Understand that?
So we can compile the funding that's being utilized for the LIG funds and use that as our multi-year plan to submit to the LDC. You see what I'm saying?
Right, but we started talking about a multi-year plan back in the fall, and it just kind of fell by the wayside.
No, we had said that we were going to discuss that in conjunction with the budget. And,
Didn't really happen.
well, that's really all this money here is,
Right, but we haven't run it by them. She's expressing that concern, and therefore requesting to get on our agenda so she can discuss it further.
I think the time to discuss the LIG funds is we would construct a multi-year plan, which is going to be this plan that's in our FY24 budget. For this fiscal year would be our FY24 plan. And then send that, Natalie has a form that's sent every year to us to fill out. She would fill it out with these numbers, send it to the local development council, and then they would say yes or no, or whether we need to have our public hearing phase. So I don't think that,
I mean, she's expressing, again, she thinks, according to state law, that we're violating law in doing this. I don't know whether that's true or
I
not.
defer to,
I don't know, but
as
she
far as
mentioned that
law,
repeatedly, and I think it's worth exploring with her further to find out where we stand on this.
Gaston?
I mean, you're asking me to shoot off the top of my head about this law. I haven't read it in probably 6 months.
I think we could look into that, but keep in mind that the budget is our planning document for the year ahead. I don't think that adopting a fiscal year budget is going to violate state law, but
No, but the funding source is, could be.
that I don't know. I'd have to defer to David Gaston.
Well,
We've talked about.
I mean, the LDC doesn't have veto power over what you guys decide to spend the money on.
It's our,
Just to add from the historical data in the past, the document that Mayor referred to, the simple reconciliation, how the funds were allocated. As long we were under the umbrella of qualified expenditures. As an example of the past, we have allocated each year full funding to fund the construction of the police department and the purchase of the land. And there is a line item, what is the future allocation of the funds and how much we have available at the end of the year. So from the past, we have not been asked to provide a multi-year. It's only what's in the past and 1 year ahead, which I consider our budget is a planning ahead. So this document is provided to share the allocation from the past, how much we have remaining as of fiscal year end, and what are our plan to utilize the funds for the next year. If they're asking for a specific additional documentation of multi-year, that's something different from the budget process.
Yeah, but they, all I'm saying is they've received nothing from the town. From her perspective, I'm not saying.
but that's
Well,
also because we had said.
From the previous reporting, we have stated that we're planning to allocate $10,000 for the Ops study, which happened in fiscal '23.
Correct.
And we also provided the information in that report that we're planning to fund the Ops for the future, but no estimates were given because we simply did not have the amount at that time. So the commissioners are aware that Down of Berlin had a plan to fund the Ops from the past.
Right, so I don't know how much control they have over what we can do and can't do with this money.
They're advisory, correct?
From what I-
They are advisory.
They're advisory, but according to them, it's a little more in-depth than that.
Well,
I'm just.
according to the statute, it's not more in depth than that.
One of the things I would like to have Karen discuss when she is allotted a spot on our agenda is exactly how that organization fits into the scheme of this funding and what authority or advisory authority that they do have, because I don't understand. I don't understand what authority they will have over what the town of Berlin decides to do with this funding, as long as it fits into those categories.
Ask that gentleman right there, he's told us before.
And the category is public safety.
Correct.
And I can't imagine arguing that it's okay to fund of the building of a police department, and that's okay for public safety, but paying your police officers is not public safety.
And there is precedent for that, by the way. Other entities within the state fund the same.
I just,
Yeah, I'm
that
not
doesn't make any
suggesting we
sense.
don't fund the Ops, so
Yeah.
don't take that message. I just
No,
wanna get
I'm
this
not,
right.
I'm just,
And she says we should be asking the state's attorney for
But the,
clarification on,
the state's attorney.
yeah.
we've asked the
The
local,
attorney doesn't have
I'm
anything
just
to do with that.
just so that everybody understands the process.
She needs to.
Like Natalie has said, they typically ask us to define what the money's been spent for. And I think all of you have seen that document before in the past. If not now, they can share it with you.
It's not, it's a normal process.
Right.
Each year we're required to submit all the expenditures as reported.
And we've done this for how many years?
As long as SLOSS revenues existed.
So would it be okay
We got some
to put her
history
on the
on that.
agenda, as Dean said, to hear from her perspective?
I sure would appreciate it very much.
More of a presentation about what their group does
Yes,
and what capacity they have.
correct.
I'm okay with
And
that.
yet how they fit into this funding schedule or
Come on the
process.
next agenda.
Not the next one's stacked, but we'll we'll find one that we can put them on in the next couple of meetings. Let's see. What group does? And just so the town knows, we do, or everybody knows, we do have representation on LDC. Ivy, our Economic and Community Development Director, does serve on that committee. So we do have a committee member that represents the town. Okay. Statute. Okay.
Well, something I'd like to propose. The amendments that we went through, the changes that we went through, actually okay with all of them except the EMS operating allocation. I'm not okay with reducing that by $52,500 as a result of the grant from the county. So I want to propose a plan to recoup that. I've got a few things, so let me just go through this. And I do have copies of this for the council, but so with that concept of that change not being okay with me, I feel like we need to find $52,500 to fully fund EMS, because I remember telling them that shift was going to be funded, and I don't think it's right to drop it down.
Councilmember, just as a note, the only reason that it's reduced is because I have the obligation of submitting a balanced budget, and I can only work with the revenues that we have. And
Right.
those revenues are set by the tax rate, so that's the reason that the allocation is what it is. I can't submit something that's not.
Absolutely. So I'm going to kind of try to address it.
Go ahead.
Well, can I, we are in a public hearing, are we not?
No, the
Yeah.
public hearing's closed. We're at
Oh, I'm
council
sorry.
discussion.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. So in an effort to find $52,500, I actually have a few things. So I'm just going to roll through it here, and it's going to be really, I don't know how else to do it, except we had a conversation about the IT server, which is in administration, 5100, 5255. I'm going to propose cutting that. It was budgeted at $21,000. We had town administrator researched, and it was advised against by the IT company, but they did say that they could do a $1,500 service agreement to stay current if we opt to not fund the new server. So I look at that as $19,500 in savings. Also, police in-car video, I spoke to the chief and Lieutenant Fisher, and it seemed to be a thought already, maybe that $20,000 had come out. And I understand that grant is being pursued, so I propose cutting that. And also, done quite a bit, and God bless Natalie, she's worked with me and provided me
And
some
that's
information.
20,000, the in-car video, 20, right?
20,000. And in the income tax revenue, in an earlier budget, Natalie increased it from 400,000 to 460,000. The last 5 years, the town of Berlin has received an average of 524,895 from the county. We currently have it budgeted as 460,000, and Natalie is doing her job by being fiscally conservative. I do feel very comfortable, again, with an average of 524,000 over the last 5 years, increasing that to $500,000. I think that's an appropriate number to project. That brings in $79,500. We direct $52,500 to refund the remaining EMS shift money. That brings that back to the number of $125,000. I'd also like to see the town of Berlin restore a one-time payment, also never call it a one-time payment again, and call it a year-end bonus. So we take out the one-time, make it part of what we do as our employee compensation. Proposing it to be $250 per employee. That equals $11,841 for the general fund,
Can I get that
$7,000.
number one more time?
$11,841 for the general fund. Now that is from the one-time projections from last November that I'm using that number. And I proposed that for all the employees. I did really give a lot of thought to siloing out the employees that weren't impacted as much by the pay study. I just feel like keeping it flat at 250, it was 500 last year, which I know that causes heartburn, but I do think 250 is better than zero. And I took to heart what Kelsey said at a recent meeting that while pleased to see the direction we're taking with our formalizing our salary structure and the 2.25% COLA. It was a feeling that, the employees are still not getting what they believe they deserve, and I do embrace the concept of an end-of-the-year payment. So that is what proposal. Now, I personally would prefer the code enforcement position to be under the planning department. I understand the plan that was proposed. I don't really have necessarily a problem with that, assuming the job description would. It seems like a lot for a deputy town administrator to take, especially if there was an absence of the town administrator. But I'm not willing to, put my foot down on that. I feel like it would be better if it was in the planning department, but I'll trust the staff and the team. So I'm happy to revisit, add this up again, but I think, I actually have, with those changes, there's about 15,000 remaining from the general fund that I was suggesting to put towards a part-time code enforcement position and reevaluate the deputy town administrator salary. But I'm willing to drop that if we can. So I'm proposing this. I know there's other discussion on the table. At some point I would like to make a motion, but I know that Councilman Orris has a plan too.
Well, I just have a question. What was your total for the one-time payment or the end of year?
Yeah, that's right. All right. So this number is, and I believe it's still accurate, but it'd be $11,841 for the general fund and $7,000 for the utility funds.
Well, what is the difference between Natalie's conservative, Natalie's, what is the difference between what Natalie has recommended and what you have?
It's, well, largely the income tax revenue from $460,000 to $500,000. And the last 5 years, the town of Berlin has received $524,000 on average.
I want to recognize the finance director out of respect for the position and the recommendation that we've received. Do you want to speak for a moment about the additional allocation you've made to income tax revenue and the reason that you believe that number is prudent?
As I provided in the email, the amounts vary, and local income tax gets impacted by so many factors. We already know that's income tax. Normally, we have budgeted conservatively. Yes, we would like it to receive above, but it's not huge amounts that it's above what we have received. If the expenses stay within the budgeted amounts and the revenues received above, that surplus gets close to unassigned balance of general fund each year. And that's how the financial stability and health of the general fund creates, so we can reassign those funds for future projects, be able to plan ahead. Advancing the revenue or increasing the revenue projections for ongoing expenditure is not my recommendation simply. So I would like to.
I want to also, do you have the table that you sent? Can you read the fiscal year amount that we actually received so that folks can understand where we're at?
You're talking about the printout for the local income tax? Is that what you're-
Correct, yep. The table that you have that shows each one of the July contributions from 18 to 2022.
In the email I provided earlier for fiscal year 19, we have received, I'm going to round to the nearest thousand, 519,000. For fiscal 20, we have received 429,000. Fiscal 21, I believe there were some adjustments to the local law of the income tax, and we have received an above the projected amount of 672,000. Also, you have to keep in mind that there are extensions given at the end of the year, and those amounts can be carried forward. So the projections that we have, not necessarily always on the dot. Fiscal 22, we have received 412,000. And on fiscal 23, we are at 592. One payment is pending just simply to be updated in the system, but you see it as 460. But I believe that would be the last payment with this fiscal year. So going from 400 was my conservative estimate, increasing to 460. I don't have a problem going to 500 on the budget, but it's not the practice we would like to adopt.
And we have to keep in mind, and I mean, thank you for bringing this to our attention, Councilmember Green, it's a good point to explore. Keep in mind that if we put 500 and we come in less than that, that will be reflected in our year-end balance in a negative capacity, whereas by budgeting more conservatively, typically we end up realizing all of that income tax revenue, and we're able to close the year with a decent budget. So I want to note that if we do go to 500, it may be correct, Councilmember, but that I want the group to understand what happens if we are incorrect.
So would we just pull the 40,000 from stabilization,
Well,
which is there?
it would change your unassigned fund balance is what it would do. But the conversation after we had the conversation in the work session, and Councilmember Green brought this up, Natalie did move the revenue item up $60,000. We had a conversation following, I think in the past week or so, Councilmember Green, where you felt that that could go a little higher. I had that conversation with the finance director, and she said that she was confident with the number that was there and was not confident going any higher would be prudent budgeting practice. So I wanted to keep it at 460, and that was the recommendation.
But you're okay at 500? Don't like it, but you're okay.
Whatever you would like me to
So,
do.
like,
I just
tell me-
explained myself in writing and
460 is what she
I
expressed.
understand.
Tell me what salary is related to this deputy administrator?
what is the amount that will be?
What is the amount of the salary of this new employee?
Currently, based on the pay study, it's $103,724.
Now, I really do believe that needs some discussion.
Well, and I want to note, and I'll let the town administrator discuss the number, but the number is what's reflected at 35% of the pay point study. I don't think either of us see that number as being the number.
Right, but you're setting a somewhat dangerous precedent if you're following the study the rest of the way and then you're deviating from it for one position. That's
Well,
a
personally,
consideration.
I do believe that this needs some deviation, because you have a person, and I'm just gonna say this as simple as possible. You have a person off the street walking in here making $108,000 on day one. I just can't go along with that. Despite what the study says, despite what that 35% is, I just can't see it.
I don't think the person
I just can't
should be the
see
deputy
it.
county
It's some
administrator.
folks in this town that has worked years to achieve that level of salary, and I just can't see it.
I understand what you're saying. I do think it's a conversation for a different
Yes,
setting.
that needs.
That's why we also kept it at the 35%, which was recognized in the study. And when we moved forward with that conversation of the position being filled, I thought that was more of a prudent time to discuss
That really
the salary.
That really
Now,
needs discussion.
I think that-
Councilmember
well-
Nichols, you're saying you don't see a need for the
No,
position?
I'm not saying that.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying that we do need someone to be of assistance in
That can
planning
be
and zoning, but I don't think it needs to be that title per se. I mean, if there's another spot, because you initially were thinking,
Let's not muddy the water on the two positions, because the important distinction is that Dave asked for an assistant to be able to assist in their operations of the planning department, no differently than the chief asked for an assistant to assist in operations in the police department. And then there was one more. Natalie asked for a staff accountant to be able to assist in operations in her department. We were over budget, everybody knows that, with the requests that we had. We had to reel all of those in. Thank you to all of our staff for doing that and making some reductions within your departments. But that's how we got to where we are now.
oh, I understand that. I
The deputy
understand that
role
completely.
is a deputy town administrator, serving and taking direction from the town administrator. And part of that role has special projects. There's been discussion at the staff level with the town administrator and the planning director to come to an idea that having somebody that can assist in the role of a deputy town administrator, taking on some of those special projects, could assist the planning department with filling out their role in code enforcement. That's how we got there.
I understand
It
that.
was a way to
I
try to kill
understand
two
that too.
birds with one stone.
I understand,
frankly.
I get it, but at that price point, I don't think that that's the position we need to fill. That's what I'm thinking, that's.
Well, and I'll-
Did
that's
you
what I-
talk about a time allocation between the two? Is it like how much time would be allocated to?
No, well, let's just be clear that the deputy would not report to the planning director. The deputy would report to the town administrator. And the town administrator and the planning director could have collaboration on what projects may assist and alleviate some time within the planning department to fulfill the code enforcement role at the direction of the town administrator. So no dedicated staff time would be fully committed to planning. As time is needed, Mary would have the ability, or the town administrator would have the ability to allocate some resources to assist planning during times when that's not needed. That position would be serving the deputy role and assisting with other projects in other
I'm
departments.
just trying to get a sense of how much time needs to be allocated towards code enforcement specifically. Maybe Dave can answer that.
Oh, he needs more than just code enforcement, he says.
Well,
Well, I understand that.
my discussion with Mary was based on if we set up a program. See, the code enforcement's, a lot of that's come out of this short-term rental ordinance hullabaloo, I'll call it that. We have 10 current licensed short-term rentals. If you count all the ones on the websites, there's possibly 14 more. So for 24 licensed locations, possible licensed locations, we don't need a $103,000 position.
Correct.
I don't think we need that for a short-term rental enforcement officer. I think if we got a program in place for monitoring the websites, seeing what reservations are available on a periodic basis, I don't know, once every 2 weeks, once every week, we'd have to try it out. So my thought to Mary was, and I knew she had this in her budget for the deputy town administrator, is someone who's capable of that position could assist us in developing that program and following it. And if that took 8 hours a week, a full day, so be it. But that would be a trial basis. And then when we come back budget next year, we see, do I need a full-time person? Do I need a part-time person? Or can this person who's filled the deputy town administrator position continue in that role? That's the way we thought was the path forward. That's the way we agreed. We thought we could handle it with what was already budgeted. Not to create this conversation you're having tonight. Oh, we need another position. Not at this late stage. We didn't believe so. So we thought we could handle it with the one position that she needs filled. And that, as you said, is project-driven and responsibilities given. Mary's gonna make sure that person stays busy, because all of the people in administration are crazy busy now. So that person is gonna be taking some weight off, more than just administration, but hopefully some of the weight off of us in planning. That's the way we discussed it.
But the issues would go beyond short-term rentals. I mean, there are other issues, maybe not a lot, but cleaning up.
Every week.
Cleaning up sites, there's always something.
Every week, there's something, yeah.
So
Every day, there's something. Yeah.
Now, before we progress too far, I do want to note that, Councilmember Green, you weren't here yet, but during the time of transition between town administrators, all four of you asked what the plan was when that transition was taking place. And within all of our departments, we try to create redundancies. And part of that redundancy is having a deputy town administrator. It's something all of you wanted. It is something that is in our budget. And I just want to note that that is part of that redundancy of our operations. So just keep that in mind, everyone.
I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. And yes, I do believe we need a deputy town administrator. But I don't believe we need a deputy town administrator with a starting salary.
Well, I think we both agree, Mary and I both agree, but the only reason that number is there is to keep consistency with the pay point study. I think that we have both discussed that number is too high, we believe. But we note that if we adjust course, we need to have a reason that we're adjusting course.
Right.
So we want to fine tune the job description a little bit and work from there.
And I'll also suggest that the salary conversation at the end of the day can be based on the person who does come in. You could have someone who comes in with 20 years of experience as an administrative position for a town, and that's a different picture than someone who doesn't. That's a conversation for at the point that you're actually looking at people.
Well, I brought it up now because if that $108,000 is currently in the budget, and if that's not a number we're actually
103.
130,
2,000, 3,000.
and if that's not a number we are actually considering, maybe if that number could be adjusted, we could get to the price points that Steve has recommended, and we'll be able to do all of those positive things that he has outlined.
Well, so I have,
I will
along the
say-
same lines. Am I gonna get to do this?
You will, yes. I will say, Vice President Burrell, that some of the notes that some of the notes that Councilmember Green mentioned are the 52.5, the 11,841. 52 would be too steep of a reduction in that salary point, I think, to attract somebody. 11 may be something that we could do.
But that could help.
Correct, yes. Yeah, I think the 11,841 is reasonable. I think the 52 would be too much of a takeaway from that
It
position.
means it's a different title. I mean, I'm not to say, just like because of this pay study, and now because
Well,
of
that's
general.
right.
Yeah, we should give Jack, Councilmember Ward.
Go ahead, Jack, go ahead and talk,
It doesn't
Jack.
need to be.
Well, so here's what I was thinking. Some things I kind of, I agree with. I would like to see the 500,000, so that's a plus 40. The IT server.
Hold on, 500,000. Help
I'm
me.
sorry, for the 500,000 for the income tax, up from 460.
Okay.
So that's plus 40,000. The IT server down to 1,500, so that's plus 19.5. The in-car, agreeing with Councilmember Green, in-car video, that's plus 20. Well, this recent conversation, I was thinking here in my notes, and by the way, everybody, I'm on my phone for my calculator, I'm not just doodling. 56 base, and I did 20% benefits, so that brings it up to 70,000.
What are you doing on
For the,
that?
that would be for the code enforcement position.
You said
So that would-
56 is the starting
Well,
salary?
56 is the base, but with the 20% benefits, another 14, so a total 70. Because we need to factor in benefits.
And you're using that as a salary for a code enforcement position?
Well, no, kind of both, but I'm just taking it away from the 103.
Okay.
So you're eliminating
That
So-
the
might
deputy TA positions, salary
70, so
budget,
we're putting 30 back in the budget.
and putting it.
To a code enforcement officer at what total?
Well, 70 total, 14 benefit, 56 base.
Does
that sound about right?
Fringe estimate. I know, it's just an estimate.
I don't
48%.
remember what we
So
typically, to be
40%.
honest, I don't
Okay,
remember what we
all right, I think
25.
So we're not filling,
Yeah.
the deputy town.
I mean, I had it in my head that 70 was good to do what you were suggesting.
Keep in mind
Perhaps I'm
that
not right on
the
that.
Paypoint HR study quoted 103,000. which is what we're using for every other department and every other position.
Right, but
So
I mean,
just keep that in mind.
I understand that, but also by the same token, is we're only doing 45% for the people we have.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
we're bringing someone new.
Yep.
And that's a fair point, because when we look at the pay point HR study, they're based on the numbers of the market, and which doesn't necessarily tell you how many years the people feeding that data have in their position. So that is a fair.
No longevity.
I will
So the
say,
chief's
from my
position is-
perspective though, I guess I thought moving forward, we would be hiring at 35%. I mean, yes, occasional
That's what-
deviations from that, but I guess I was under the impression that if we're moving forward with 35,000, like I just advertised first, I'm sorry, 35,000, 35%. I just advertised for a stormwater labor, and I had, part of that study was to be more transparent to the public, so I did indicate that 35% was that, like that figure was the starting hourly rate. So if that's not what it should have been, then I guess I need clarity.
And just to, hold on one second, just to clarify, that was the intention of the study, and that was the intention of this body, was to use it as a metric to gauge current staff and what we should be hiring at, because we've been using the best possible numbers we can come up with.
So
We now use 35%.
Did we ask pay point what the starting point would be for a code enforcement officer then?
No, because that one at the time was not really something you guys, we had started this back in like, what, October, I
Yeah.
think? So when we had provided them with the positions, that was not one that was really that talked about at that time, so.
Well, let me go through my
Yeah,
suggestions.
I'm just pointing out the.
Yeah, no, I
right there.
appreciate it. Just so that I don't lose my train of thought here, so 40, okay, so that would be, dropping that down to 70 would be plus 33,724 for a total of 113,224, if my math is correct. All right, I am thanks, Steve. I am suggesting that we use the 52,500 to fund the other half of the EMS staffing and return those LIG funds back to that respective reserve. And I'm also for.
Hold on one second, you got me there.
Okay, well.
And to return those LIG funds back to their respective reserve.
Right.
That is 403871, which is $42,500 for fire EMS additional staff allocation slot revenue.
Yes, I had to add $10,000 because 42.5 plus what's in the other half was only 115,000.
Huh?
Okay, so if you take the 42.5,
Yes.
math is hard. 42.5.
Yeah, but I have a degree in finance.
That's okay. So you take the 42.5,
Correct.
right, and add 72.5. What do you get?
42.5 and 72.5. That's not going to get you where you need to be. You're
Right.
light 52.5.
Okay, your budget here we'll do $72,500
I got you.
plus 42.5 comes up to what?
But what I'm saying to you
150,000.
is take a look at the EMS agreement. In that agreement, it states 72.5, and the delta of what you need is 52.5.
Right, and in your budget, it has 42.5. So I added the 10,000 into my suggestion.
Natalie, is that correct? We are at half, we are at more than half on the, go ahead.
Okay, end result, we're trying to reinstate 125.
Right.
125.
So I put in
Yes.
another $10,000.
So
Yep,
we have 75, 270,
72.5.
72,500. Take out of 125, that's what you.
Which is $10,000 in short.
52.5, so you
So-
got
so
42.5
right.
and
So there we
10,000
go.
break.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which leaves,
Your math good?
Change your mind?
which leaves 37,960 by my numbers to, I don't have a
The good.
plan for that, but that's to the good.
Okay. I'm lost. Not lost, I mean, I'm lost on all the recommendations. I'm waiting for some consensus.
All right, so how do we tackle this?
But we have a
Do
lot
we
of
have a
amendments.
consensus? So I think we have 3 points.
Well, I have our sheet.
Oh, yeah.
So one consensus is, well, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm asking you all this. I feel that we're in agreement that we don't want to spend $100,000 on a new employee with the title of deputy town administrator. Yes, we do want to do deputy town administrator, but we can't afford that that $100,000+. Is that how this group feels?
That's how I.
Yeah, that's my
That's
recommendation.
the consensus as far as that goes. From there, yes, we do know that Dave needs assistance, Mary needs assistance, you might have to hold on a minute here, sister, but he needs assistance too, but I can't see us, and if you're saying that a deputy town administrator, this is the price point, oh, she's gone, the price point to put him at, maybe we should consider looking at, as I stated earlier, a different fill, not the town administrator, the deputy town administrator, for the time being. Because we just said $100,000 is not what we want to spend on a new
Well,
employee.
let's be clear, it's 103,000, is
Or
that correct?
103,000, 104,000.
103,000.
Sorry, not
And that's the base salary, that doesn't
That is
count
35% of markup.
Yes, it does not count any
any
fringe.
benefits. So any reduction you make to the
Regardless,
salary will also make reductions to benefits.
and for every new hire, I assume a family plan, the highest
Sure.
rate, so that if we come in under, great.
And not to cut, but I forgot to mention, when I did the one-time, the 22,764 for the one-time bonus, that was actually 500 for 42 staff, and it was the 35 who aren't affected by the
Pay point.
35% market value, and the 7 folks who are, that are under $1,000 in their increase. There were 7 of those folks.
All right, one thing before we move forward with this town administrator, deputy town administrator position, I just want everybody to be clear that by adjusting from the 1037 without a change in the job description, although it is higher than what the town administrator and I have discussed already, it does deviate from the 35% that we've all wanted to move forward as far as a floor for all of our employees. It will create an inequity with the way that position is described currently. The other thing I want to note is that if we do not fill this position, Mary has a contract, but she has every right to leave at some point or do whatever she may deem. She could go out on a voyage tomorrow. She is not bound to have to keep that position forever. It creates a void if she leaves. There is no succession plan for that position by removing this salary amount. That's okay, but you have to all understand that. And I want it on the record that that is the case.
Didn't you say though didn't we discuss last meeting that the code enforcement officer, it would also be plugged into the step and grade that came out in the next?
The step and grade is something we hope to implement in this fiscal year as a plan for next fiscal year for adoption. The funding for that the funding that we have currently will not cover a step and grade system.
Okay.
And to the point, it addresses what the chief has brought up multiple times, that 35% does not take into account longevity or any seniority that exists within the departments.
And we've also kept, keeping in mind the expressed desire to reach 50% of market. But these are all conversations that are going to be held over the next year.
Right, and one more thing and I'm done with this. The urgent thing is that we need some sort of enforcement to help out Dave Shutt. So let's aim for
Well, I
that.
can tell you that it's fairly urgent that we get some in that bid.
So, and I want to reflect that concern by this body has been taken, and that the town administrator and the gentleman that's in charge of planning and code enforcement have had a conversation and believe that a deputy town administrator position with the special projects that currently exist within that job description could help handle some of the things that you all are asking for this evening. So that's the staff recommendation at this time.
All right, so going
Mayor,
down this list.
with all due respect, I'm sorry, we're all over the place.
We are.
Yeah.
Let's do next, let's put one item, discuss it. You agree all, we put a point on it, move to the second item. The budget adoption, the budget will be adopted with the recommendation at the end of the day that you will make. So the first item that I hear is to reinstate the fire company EMS funded for 2 additional employees.
at 125.
So this is one item on the budget that is discussed, what I hear.
But
in
the
conversation.
question is how we get there.
Exactly.
And I know there are many things floating around.
So why don't I go ahead and can I make a motion to?
No, not now.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jay.
Not now.
So I hear what you're saying, Alan, but I just want to go down just to help build consensus. I am in full agreement that we should fully fund the EMS at 125, so we're 105. I do think we should cut the server. I talked about that before at 19.5. The police video, 20,000, I agree with that. I also agree with, believe it or not, increasing the tax revenue estimate to 500,000.
And is that?
And the year-end bonus at 250 for 11,841.
Just to clarify, that's the state income tax
Okay.
as opposed to real property.
Correct. All right. And as far as the deputy town administrator position, I think we should rename that position to a person called a special operations or special projects person, and you hire it out of that premises, and they give you both code for help Gates department and the town. But we do not hire a deputy town administrator for this year. And we can evaluate that person over time to see if they're qualified to be that position.
Do I understand for at 103,000?
No, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we would, the salary may be higher than 70,000, I think that's something that Kelsey would have to work out. But I think if within that 103,000, we can fund that position and everything else. So, but it would not be hiring a deputy town administrator, it would be a special projects person or special operations.
Special projects administrator was actually once a title that we had.
There you go, right there.
And, yeah, there's been several various titles that have served in that capacity, and I do think that doing something like that would be more, I guess, I don't know, I think about someone picking up some administrative duties in planning, and I wonder if that 103 was not too much when it breaks down to an hourly rate. So I think if you gave it some sort of title like that, you could come down on that and
So
make it work for both.
Kelsey, did that 103, does that include fringe?
No.
That's a base salary.
But keep in mind that that number came from Paypoint HR. That's the reason it's there.
It's there, and you cut it, you use it for the funding of the other stuff.
That's what we're looking for.
Let me make sure I'm understanding Councilmember Hurd. I got the increase of EMS to be 125. I've got the income tax revenue to 500. Can you please go to the other items?
Server, cut the server.
Server.
Cut the police video.
To 1,500.
We will implement the year-end bonus of
Hold on, 1 second, please. PD video, remove.
20,000.
Yep.
Reinstate year-end bonus of 250, which is 11,841.
Year bonus at what?
11,841.
That came at 250 each. Okay?
And set up a new position for,
Thank you. Thank you.
that's just kind of summarize what we've all been talking about.
I just have a question for council. The position you advertised today at 35 percentile, during this study, was that one of the positions that was low?
It was a position that we were actually paying more than what what it came in at, but that person is transferring to another position. So now, what I advertised at is actually less than what we currently had, budgeted, but not big difference. I mean, we're talking like $1 an hour, so about 20, or 2,000.
$2,000
Yeah.
a year.
So now the only thing we haven't, I think, talked about with the year-end bonus.
Please don't call it more.
Yeah.
Just call it something.
We
What do you
don't,
call
we should
it?
not be calling it a bonus.
Oh, and
I don't know what. to
Year-end
call it.
payment, year-end payment.
Year-end payment.
Why you paid.
Yeah, year-end payment.
Don't say one nothing to
I
it.
know. $7,000 in utility funds needs to be, we need to find that. Do you see any issues with that?
Utility funds can carry 500, we already discussed that as of today.
All right, good.
So are you, Councilmember Green, are you saying that it's annually, 250 annually moving
I
forward?
would like to see that
Become
get off of our scaffold plate that it keeps getting, and then, look, obviously it's going to be year to year.
The one time to change that is going to be when we're looking at the employee handbook. We can define that as a benefit within the handbook. And then that could help solidify that number.
We could.
I mean, outside of that, it's a budget and it can be struck
I
every
mean,
year.
I would like to go that route and talk about it more as a benefit for the handbook. I mean,
Sure.
um,
Yeah, don't have that power to do that. But I write,
Actually, you do, but just not at this meeting.
Not today.
Not today.
Not today. So do we, do we have consent? We didn't make a motion.
Yes, you do.
I'll make a motion for all this.
Now, hold on 1 second. The chief, the last we talked about the in-car video. Do you feel comfortable with removing that amount? I know we've discussed this.
So you're saying for $250?
No, I'm
Okay.
saying that.
I just wanted to make that clarity.
No, the $20,000 in in-car video, we have discussed the need for that service as well as some changes within the department as to when those cameras will come online. I don't want your department to go without that video equipment in the work that you're doing. So do you feel comfortable with removing that item or not?
Currently, we have old technology is being used. It's no different than the old IT server is actually being used. So we would have to roll the dice and see how far our old technology goes. But we're also smart enough to know that we want this equipment, we have to go ahead and look at grants and other means. If the town can't fund the budget, we actually attempt to go ahead and look for the things we need. We have to. So that's where we are.
So I'm hearing the word that it's a need.
Well, yeah, everything in my budget's a need.
But it's a need.
And the thing of it is, we've already cut needs.
Right, I mean.
So, if you cut more needs, we're at the same place.
So I want to go on the record just for a few things before motions start to fly. The year-end bonuses are not there because of the feedback that I received from many of you about removing that to meet the 35% goal. That's why the year-end bonuses are not there. I do support those payments, but they are gone because of what the feedback I received from this group. So I do support adding those back. Now, the police department video, I don't believe in rolling the dice on something like that when we have times with one officer on duty. This is the backup that they have. So I'm not in support of risking that. I am not in support of the server. I understand that there's a possibility that we can extend it one more year, but I do want to be cognizant and go on the record that our IT provider has said that that does come at some risk, and I want that known, that there is some risk by extending that server life. And the discretion of the finance director was to not go higher than 460 on the income tax revenue. I do want to respect that. That's why we have that position in finance. And I lean on that recommendation as saying going higher than 460 is not a prudent budgeting practice, so I do want that on the record as well. I do support getting to 125 on EMS, but I think there's ways that we can do that through the ARPA allocations that we already have available. So that's my 2 cents, but I'll take any motions.
I agree with Mayor's recommendation.
Well, I agree. I thought this ARPA allocation, I mean, I feel like I said this months ago. I felt like that was the first thing that that should have been considered when it came to fire and EMS, because that money's been sitting there and it's not yet been utilized. I understand that the grant is possibly this year, but this money is on a time limit, right? Or whatever. So I think, I mean, if they're in need, when you're in need and you've got a little bit of money in a rainy day fund or what have you, then you need to go with that. And that's what I think that we should use for those guys. So as far as pulling it from these others, I don't think that we should. I think we should hit the ARPA first. And with the chief and his needs, if we're not pulling from this for that 52, give it back his $20,000 for his cameras, because those guys are low. I don't want to spend more than $70,000 on this new employee. I'm saying that out loud. If I'm offending somebody, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I truly am not. I don't want to spend any more than $70,000 max. So that would be $30,000 put back into the fund to go wherever else it's needed. That's my take on it. all of these things.
So, again, I'm confused. After the utilization of ARPA funds was a consideration to get us here, why wasn't that recommended or suggested prior to this meeting?
Because.
With that, I would like to proceed with, I would like to make a motion to approve the budget with the budget changes as outlined by Natalie and with the summary of changes as described by Jay and Steve.
Okay, but we gotta make sure we're clear on what those are. So
Those have been stated
Yep.
3 or 4 times.
I know, but I just want to make sure that I have
Which
them,
ones?
and for the record, we have them correct.
Natalie, can we-
So Natalie's changes are the document that we have
Yes.
dated FY 2024 budget changes since introduction on 05/8.
Which is
Those are the
reflected
ones-
in the current
Correct.
report that you have in front of you.
Those are the
That's
ones
already
that
reflected.
Dave said had to be included in the
Correct.
motion.
And then the additional changes that Jay and Steve have discussed, is that what you said?
Yes,
Okay, so that is increasing EMS to 125. EMS to 125.
Mayor, can I bring a detail to that increase?
Please. Yep.
For fiscal '25, with the plan in place to fund that expenditure as an ongoing if it's decided upon by other revenues beside our reallocation.
Yeah, but I don't think we can group that with this, but.
I just wanted to be stated. That is an ongoing expense, and we're allocated one-time fund that we have in place.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You want the record to reflect that we're using
It's fiscal '24
one-time money
only,
to
yes.
cover ongoing expenses. I agree.
Okay.
And that, in order, Councilmember Burrell, in order to get to the 125, your suggestion is to utilize the ARPA funds?
That was sent
No,
out.
no.
Okay, that's why I wanted to
As
clarify.
outlined by Jay, and that is,
Okay.
we're gonna,
Increasing
we're gonna
income
gonna-
tax.
cut the server.
Okay, hold on. Income tax to $500,000. The server is going to be reduced to $1,500.
Yes. And the cameras.
And the police department cameras are going to be reduced in full. That's a savings of $20,000, okay?
And we're gonna add the.
Year-end bonuses? Or year-end one-time payments?
Year-end
Yes.
payment.
Year-
Not one
year-end
time.
payment.
Yeps.
Payment. At
$11,841.
$250 per employee across all funds.
And we're gonna rethink the assistant administrator.
To reduce the salary of the deputy town administrator. You gotta-
It's a new title.
It's a new title.
Well, but it is a reduction to what is
Yeah,
budgeted.
you gotta reduce the expenditure, so reduce the deputy town administrator role to what level?
70,000.
$70,000, okay? I think that's the,
Actually, we're creating a new position.
yeah, but you can't do that, I don't think you can do that
We're
on the,
defunding that
you're reducing the deputy role.
You're reducing the budgeted salaries in
and
that.
adding.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, at this point, that's all we're really
Okay,
doing.
that'll work.
All right, yep, you're right. Okay, so the motion is what we just covered.
Yes.
Anybody need to repeat it?
Does that give us,
It's,
sir, what is the,
As long as,
I
There
don't
is a
know,
certain-
I'd have to ask
That's
the
why I said
finance
give the
director.
chief understanding.
if there's a difference, it'll go into contingency. And make sure Natalie is clear on everything.
I said give the chief understanding.
Okay, so I have a motion by Vice President Burrell, and I have a second by Councilmember Ortiz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Let the record reflect that the budget ordinance 2023-03 as amended passes with 4 council members in favor and 1 council member opposed, Councilmember Nichols. And thank you all for your help. Now, Vice President Burrell, you asked about the ARPA funds, why that wasn't reallocated. And the reason that it's not reallocated is because I have to propose the budget. I don't have the ability to propose it with unlocking your already assigned, or the council's already assigned ARPA allocations. So this body has locked those in at 220 for the fire company. I don't have the ability to reallocate those in the proposed budget. That's the reason they were untouched.
But you put a proposal.
I proposed that all along.
Yes, we talked about that
Yep.
weeks ago.
I proposed that all
So
along.
we got $220,000
Mayor,
earmarked for
I'm
those
sorry,
jobs.
why are we creating excess of revenues right now on the budget if we don't need that much? Why are we cutting so much? Why are we cutting the cameras if we don't need to cut the cameras right now?
I don't know either.
What did your number come to?
How much was?
Yeah.
You're gonna receive an excess of revenues. You have increasing by 40, the income
Yeah.
tax, that's 40.
Yep,
You're reducing by 30, a salary, that's 70,
right.
okay? You cut in the server, I'm just rounding,
Go ahead.
20, that's 90. And you only need 52 plus 12, about 70 there, and you're also reducing the cameras and the server. You're gonna have additional,
The year-end bonus too, but I know.
Does that include about
so
having
I,
higher?
you know,
That's why I said
Alan said
give
you created extra contingency for no particular reason by taking away cameras from the police department, for example.
And
I'm
not
just not
meeting the needs
following
of
the
the
logic.
department.
Okay, so that include year-end bonus. So if you could.
That's, so right now we need 52,500 for the fire. We need $12,000 for year-end payment. That's,
For general fund only.
that's general fund, yeah.
Right.
Steve, you're not making 10 o'clock.
64,500 is what we need for fire and
And the
one-time
bonus.
payments. Okay?
So
You
there,
have increased the revenue by 40. You have taken 20 for the cameras. And you cut the server out.
Don't forget the change, or
don't forget to change the staff.
30,000, let's say 30,000 less. That's 109.
Give them this camera.
500 minus 64, 500. You have 45,000 roughly in excess right now generated in the budget to go to contingency and not allowing the police to have a camera. That's my point.
or replacing the
Or
IT server.
replacing the IT server that is needed.
So the
That
IT was, what, 21 and then 20, so 41 out of how much is left?
IT was.
You said we had
45.
45? We had 45, and the server was how much?
21,
And the,
20.
so I'd like to
It's gonna take a separate motion.
Yeah, you already voted on that.
Voted on ordinance 2023-03 with amendments. Now you need to make a motion to amend the amended ordinance
Or we
2023-03.
leave it in contingency and do it after.
No, I say do it right now.
That will require
Give them
budget
this
amendment as well. If you want to put it to contingency, I'll come back to you in a separate meeting with amendment.
So I'll make a motion that we go ahead and amend the motion, or amend the budget to put back the
Service,
server and the
cameras.
police car cameras for 41.
Second.
Second.
So, hold on, before, I know it's late, but let's make sure we're getting it right.
It's not that late.
Dean, it's late.
No, we're saying.
So we're motioning to amend, to put back in the
Requested and
the
proposed.
requested server of 21,000
Correct,
and the police cart video for 20.
okay.
Yep, that works.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Orris, a second by Councilmember Green. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that the motion to the ordinance 2023-03 passes unanimously.
So I would just like to, we just, maybe a little grace though, for this. I mean, we're doing our best, we haven't met in 3 weeks. We don't talk, really.
I understand,
So
but
we're
we do have budget work sessions. And I know that some of these numbers have changed, but a lot of this stuff can be covered in the budget work sessions. And,
yeah. We
and a
knew
lot
we
of
were
this
getting-
stuff we have discussed multiple times.
We knew we weren't getting the EMS grant a month ago.
Well,
Also,
So
I mean,
why didn't we plan on that?
It was always discussed that if it didn't happen, that money would not be there. It's not like it was a magical thing that would just go away. And the ARPA funds are there for an easier fix. But I respect the body's decision, but there is a capability to get some of this addressed in the work session so that we can implement a better
A lot of
budget.
this came from adjusting their revenue.
Yeah, we didn't have a work session since Thursday when we got a new budget.
But it's nothing wrong with
No,
discussing
I
this stuff.
didn't say anything's wrong with it. It just makes it cleaner math. But
Well, we still got clean math.
Jack did it.
What are you just saying?
Thanks. All right. Let's move forward. All right. So up next is public hearing, agenda item 2B, ordinance 2023-04, and that's amending chapter 8, article 2 of the entitled business licenses. And our town attorney, David Gaskell, is going to run point. Our first reading was on Monday, May 22nd, 2023.
Okay, this ordinance, very simply, what it does is it now requires,
83.
it now requires businesses to provide services in the town, but which are not located, physically located in the town. It now requires those businesses to apply for and get a business license from the town of Berlin.
Motion to approve.
No, public hearing. Opening the public hearing on ordinance 2023-04. Sorry.
Move it along.
I know, I respect your expediency, but anybody that would like to come forward regarding ordinance 2023-04 for the public hearing? Last call, ordinance 2023-04, public hearing for amending chapter 8, article 2. All right, closing the public hearing. Councilmember Nur, you're up.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Nur, a second by Councilmember Orris. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that ordinance 2023-04 passes unanimously. Thank you. Up next is agenda item 3A, which is motion 2023-15, and that's a Maryland-Delaware Railroad license agreement at Evans Road for future Evans Park storage project. And our town administrator, Mary Boland, and our town attorney, David Gaskell, are going to run point.
What you are seeking to approve this evening, considering for approval, is the license agreement between the town of Berlin and the Maryland Delaware Railway. Part of what that is hinged on is the agreement between Evan Park Storage and the Maryland Delaware Railway. And essentially, the sequence of events is this. As the construction is being undertaken, the project, Evans Park Storage, is responsible for the license agreement with the railroad, for the work that they will be doing going under the railroad during construction. Once the construction of the utility lines is complete, then the town will assume ownership. And this is typical, this is the way it's handled with any development. Once the new utilities are in place, inspected by the town and approved by the town, we accept ownership. At that time, the license agreement will shift to the town. So it's kind of a two-part process. The agreement between Evans Park and the railroad is here as a reference, but the agreement that you are approving is between the town and the railroad.
That's correct. And
So what is-
just to put it a little more simply,
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
we can't put utilities under the railroad without permission of the railroad, which is why there's a license agreement.
So what does this do for the potential rails and trails?
That's a separate
It
issue.
doesn't affect it at all.
Unrelated.
So what's going to happen is, Evans Park is going to enter into a license agreement with the Maryland Delaware Railroad, because Evans Park is going to construct those lines underneath the railroad tracks. Once that's done, so of course, Evans Park has to have a license agreement with the railroad in order to do that. And once that construction is complete, to the town's satisfaction, then the town will take ownership of those sewer lines, water lines, electric lines, whatever else it is. And then the town will enter into an agreement, a license agreement with the railroad, because the town will then own those lines that are going underneath the railroad.
And is it accurate that this term is for 15 years?
That's a standard
That's
term for the
standard.
railroad.
And it'll be, it renews itself really in perpetuity unless something crazy happens when nobody cares anymore about the world anyway.
I want to know about, I want to know about the inspection process and certifying the work that makes sure that it is done to railroad standards. So when we get this stuff, we're not on the hook for a whole lot of maintenance and upgrades and
Well,
that kind of stuff.
Once we take ownership, it will be ours.
Ours.
Yes, but it will be constructed to town standards, inspected, and we won't take ownership unless we accept.
And the town's engineers will
Yes,
ensure that it's done correctly before we accept it.
right.
Right. I'm sorry, Dean, I have another question if you.
That's the only part that
Mary.
concerns me.
You have Mr. Slavin
Yes,
from Evans
yes.
Park here.
I can answer those questions.
Okay.
If you want to come forward.
Can I approach the
Yep, just
bench?
come on up, just,
I came here, I was concerned that's a great question. Mark Slavin, for the record.
thank you.
I'm one of the managing members of the Evans Park. Thank you for letting me come up to the bench. We've been engineering this thing for 2 years. I'm working with the railroad engineering firm. We have our own engineering firm. They've been working closely together. I don't want to get into the weeds. It was just going to tie up a lot of time. Let me just say, from 30,000 feet, you can't believe what it's taken to do this, to go under those tracks. It's been a process. It's been, as a little side joke, Catherine Banks is a CEO. When I first met her, she wasn't pregnant. She got pregnant, had a baby. Now the baby's 12 months old. So I've lived through that entire process with her because she was out on maternity and we stayed in touch. So we have it engineered. It's going to be solid. I've been working with Dave. Jamie's been there. We've all been on site, and it's going to be perfect. That's all I can tell you. We have caisson going inside. The caisson is an 8-inch HDPE that's getting in the weeds a little bit. Stainless steel sleeves. It's under the railroad 6 feet, and the railroad engineer has now approved it after at least 12 iterations, I can tell you, and a lot of money.
What, David, maybe you can supplement this, but what effect, negative or positive, would this have on stormwater, if any?
None. Has nothing to do with stormwater.
Yeah.
Shouldn't
But
be.
it's under the railroad.
It's
under the railroad.
subterranean, yeah, it's underground, yeah.
The net change to the road will be zero.
You won't, no one, you drive down Evans in that area, you'll never know it's there. The force main is on one side, it's a 2-inch force main, which gets our sewer out. It's a 2-inch line, that'll go inside a 6-inch caisson. The caisson, what that is that protects the line inside because both lines are under pressure. So the water line running from the from Jamie's end runs at about 60 pounds, Jamie, correct me?
Yes, sir.
That's under pressure. And then we have the sewer lines under pressure also. That's inside caissons. I mean, it would take an atom bomb to do something, to affect all this. But good question. No, doesn't affect stormwater. We have we have a huge stormwater management system going here with 43. There's 43 inlets on site. I can't even describe to you what's going on with that.
Okay.
That took about a year to engineer that.
The project will also be overseen by DVF so when the town's going to take ownership, we will have an engineer on site and he reviews all the records, make sure the material matches the submittals and make sure the submittals are correct for what they're putting in the road too.
And that those connections and that infrastructure is all bonded by Mr. Slavin. So in other words, there's a 2-year warranty period?
From the date of completion.
From the date of completion, when DBF tells us, yeah, everything's cool, then a 2-year warranty period to see if there's any issue at all. And then the town has the ability, if there is a problem, to take that bond to fix the work. So we have a 2-year.
And there's we have to put 2 fire hydrants in, that's a big benefit, one on site, one on the street. And then, by the way, and Jamie, jump in, when we finish at the west end, where it basically ends, and then it tees into the property, we have to cap it. So for future development, we've paid for that. And let me tell you, this is expensive. This is about $275,000. So our partnership is paid to put that infrastructure in, and effectively we turn it over to the town. And the only thing the town does now is you're going to turn the faucet on, and then we'll start paying our water bill and our sewer bill. But the reason we have to have it is because we're required to have fire suppression system. And obviously we can't tap a well because we're annexed into the town. That's what this is all about.
And DBF, are you here for this as well?
He
can be.
We're here for smart meters, but yes.
Not specifically, but I can vouch for the process. I assume you're working with Carlo Express, the permitting through the railroad.
And who is that?
Carlo Express for the railroad, on behalf of Norfolk Southern Railroad.
Me?
No, your engineer process.
Oh,
I'm just saying it's a long, arduous.
It's Jason for the railroad. Jason Schur is the railroad engineer. I forget the firm. Our engineer is Atlantic. Yeah, you know Chris Carball's team, and they've been working together on this thing for at least a year.
It's a long process. The railroad's going to make sure that everything that is specified to be installed is correct, and then we will be there to not only inspect the materials, but the methods of installation, and then test all the final utilities prior to recommending town acceptance.
All right, I think we've answered all the questions. Thank you, Mr. Slavin.
So are we looking for a motion?
Thank you.
We are.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion for 2023-15.
Did you want to wait for Rebecca?
I think we're okay. I think whole respect be.
Well, I'll make a motion then. Did you already make a motion?
Second.
I got a motion by Councilmember.
2023-15, the Maryland-Delaware Railroad License Agreement at Evans Road for future Evans Park Storage
Second.
Project.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Warris, a second by Councilmember Nichols. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that the vote is 4-0 with Vice President Burrell momentarily absent. He will return. Let's explore motion 2023-16, which is Evans Park license agreement, license reimbursement agreement, and Town Administrator Mary Boland, our Town Attorney David Gaskell, and Mr. Slavin are all here to.
Yeah, this is a follow-up to the license agreement. Obviously, the railroad charges a licensing fee each year, and this agreement requires, when the town takes over ownership, still requires Mr. Slavin's firm to pay the license fee every year.
Oh, yeah, I like that motion.
And this agreement will be recorded in the land records in case they sell to someone else, so everyone's on public notice.
And the new person or the new owner would have to pick up from there?
Yes.
Or?
Right.
Yeah.
Until such time as additional customers join onto the line.
Then that cost would be absorbed by the town.
Correct.
Right.
Important distinction. So we are taking a motion.
Motion to approve 2023-16.
I have a motion by Councilmember Nur, a second by Councilmember Nichols. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect that motion 2023-16 passes unanimously, 4-0. 5-0 with all council member present. Vice President Burrell, while you're here for a moment, motion 2023-15 was voted on 4-0. Would you like to amend to reflect your vote for or against? Okay, so motion 2023, let the record reflect 2023-15 passes unanimously with all council members present. All right, up next is motion 2023-17, the Maryland-Delaware Railroad License Agreement for the Berlin Bikeway Project. I'm running point on that. What that consists of is the draft agreement that we have in the packet. Thank you, Mr. Slavin.
I just want to say thank you to everybody, because I drove everyone here nuts. So I want that to go on record. Sarah, Kate, and everybody involved, Mary, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, you too. Motion 2023-16, I think Mary has, oh, nope, wrong one.
You're on 17.
Thank you.
Yes.
What page are you on?
117.
What?
We're on 122, I think.
Yes, yes, correct. 122.
And in this motion, you'll see that Mary summarized the conversations we've had with the railroad very well. I do want to give Ms. Catherine Banks, the CEO of Maryland Delaware Railroad, a shout out because she has been a great partner for the town of Berlin. She's been a great partner as it relates to all the agreements you hear or have seen this evening. This is no different. This draft agreement is what we have submitted with our Berlin Bikeway grant application that was submitted on June 7th as a draft. With that being said, the Maryland Department of Transportation has given us until the 21st, I think, to amend or further bolster our application. They have not asked for this to be an executed agreement, but I don't see where that could put us in an unfavorable position. So this agreement is, as the third line of this motion notes, if changes to the draft agreement are proposed, they will be further reviewed by the town attorney and will be recommended to the mayor and council based on pursuing the best interests of the town of Berlin. So it's a best.
Just to add, clearly we don't like to bring agreements before you that are not 100% ready to go. But because of the timing of the grant application, it was necessary in this case. The grant application or the grantors wanted to know that we were working from an agreement that we could work from.
So I just have some general questions about the Meals and Trails program.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of money flowing around with this particular project, and I want to start off by saying I'm not against it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's really cool. But I'm starting to kind of get some serious concerns with some aspects of this. So my first question is, and I'm not going to pull up the book, but my first question is, of the millions of dollars that are allocated or reserved or whatnot for this, is that for construction or just design?
It is for construction.
Yes.
It is.
And of those millions of dollars, the taxpayers are paying 20 cents on the dollar. And that's even less than that, almost 10 cents on the dollar because of the partnerships that we have with Worcester County. So when you see a $1.4 million grant, we're paying 10 cents on the dollar for that grant.
I just
for
want
construction,
to,
if it's approved.
If it's approved, and that's great. And I just want to, I went back and looked at the Bikeway Grant website and their past awards. And they've done back to FY18, and they've awarded 83 projects. 67% of those have been design and only 12% have been construction. So I am a little concerned. You'd have to go back to FY14 to see a higher amount of construction funded projects, which was 7. So I just want to put that on the radar that it is a concern, along with concerns brought forth by some property owners that would be in this pathways path, and how that affects their income opportunities and the stormwater issues that could go along with it. So I'm not saying I don't want to do it. I'm just sharing some concerns that I have right now, and that's the discussion that I want to have.
I do want to say that based on those approved construction grants, the grant application we have put forward is modeled off of one that they approved last fiscal year. That was the feedback that we got from MDOT. They have helped us in making sure that this is up to par.
Can I just, last fiscal year,
We're
FY,
putting our best foot forward
Yes.
with the feedback that we've been given by
Okay.
MDOT.
and then are you talking about FY '22 awards or FY '23?
It would have been FY '23 awards.
Okay, because they have, none of those were for construction.
I don't think that's true. Their website might not reflect it.
I'm not
They
sure
may
that
not.
set was from 22 or 23.
Okay.
It was for Tacoma Park,
Correct.
Okay.
and it was a long path.
It was.
But they used that as their
Like gold
their
standard.
model,
standard,
their
yeah.
gold standard. They said, we're willing to share that with you. Make it, basically, they told us, make it look like this.
Have all the components.
And we worked with DVF to shape up. We had gotten originally a design grant. We were awarded and we spent it back in 17, I think it was fiscal year 18, our design grant. DVF had done it for us. And we've applied now, this is the third time. And this is for the two segments of it, basically from Heron Park to Evans Road, to the end of town. The first time we applied, we just applied for the middle section from Heron Park to Broad Street. As far as the stormwater, that's all part of the design, how to handle that within the pathway. The pathway is entirely within the railroad's property. It is not on any private property. It is not on any town property. So it's entirely within the railroad's total of 66 feet of right-of-way. We asked for 14 feet on the easterly side, 10-foot path, 2-foot landscaping or rock or mulch barriers on either, depending on the area. And that's to assist in stormwater also. But that's all been designed in, and that will be also reviewed, that design. It's been reviewed to some extent by EA Engineering for our stormwater already. But if we get the construction funds before it goes to permitting, all that stuff would be reviewed again before we start.
I did say before that, you know, I'm willing to go through this process to get the application in and see what happens with the grant. If there's no other comments, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Well, I do have a comment.
Oh.
So the plans that you received a few years ago, they're still valid?
They were just recently amended.
They were
So they were,
But the 2018 plans, FY 2018, in 2017, those plans were deemed, because we used those for our original submission,
Correct.
and we were unsuccessful. MDOT gave us some feedback and said that those plans are not sufficient.
and for this grant cycle, we had to take the design up to a 90% design completion. So there are things that will have to be addressed, but you take it to 90%, and they decided that's sufficient.
So you talk about a 14-foot path alongside the railroad, or 10 foot, but in some areas, it doesn't seem like there's enough.
It goes to 8.
That's right, there isn't.
So how does that?
There isn't. Well, we're always within their right-of-way.
Right.
So there's only, the area like where Baker Street ends,
Right.
over there behind Atkins, along the fence line there, that part of the path has to move to the west to give you that 2-foot buffer along that fence line. So, and again, to not be on private property, because
And there's one section where it reduces from 8 to 10, but it's only for a short span, and it might be in that same area.
it's in the Broad Street area, yeah. Yeah.
I believe that as a rule, there's a 20-foot right-of-way that runs alongside both sides of every railroad track in the country. It's a standard that was set hundreds of years ago.
Right.
And I may be wrong about the 20 feet, but I can tell you that there is a right-of-way on both sides of every railroad in
Yep.
the country, and that's what we're
And
operating
there,
within.
the NDDE Railroad through Berlin, theirs is listed as 33 feet from the center line on either side as a right-of-way. So we know, like Jay's pointing out, behind the Atkins there, from the center line of the railroad tracks, there isn't 33 feet till someone's yard. There's probably 20 feet or 22 feet, you know, it varies. If you look at the plans, it'll vary. But only in that area. Everywhere else, it's pretty straight, all the way through town.
A couple areas, the stormwater ditches are very close, so they would have to be adjusted or.
Right.
Addressed.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's some areas where that has to be built up to make the pathway viable. It has to be raised up before the paving.
So that's all incorporated in our construction?
That's in the design.
Correct. 1.4 something million dollars, just shy of 1.5.
It grew over the last 5 years, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
The sticker price really went up.
Yes, it
All right,
did.
well, I'll go ahead with a motion to approve 2023-17, a railroad license agreement for the Berlin Bikeway project.
I have a motion by Councilmember Works, a second by Councilmember Nichols. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that motion 2023-17 passes unanimously. Thank you all. Up next is agenda item 3D. Give me just a second to get to our page.
36.
All right, so we're on page 136 with the staff report. Motion 2023-18 is the smart meter installation award of contract. Our water resources director and DBF engineer Josh Taylor are going to run point. I do want to note on the staff report, Jamie, if I may, kick off with that. You'll see within this report it includes also a recommendation to reallocate some ARPA spending that was designated by the council when we approved our ARPA spending plan. That reallocation, you'll see in the summary, starts on the third paragraph where it says within the town of Berlin's approved ARPA spending plan, there is a $1 million allocation for a wastewater treatment plant upgrade. The projected cost of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade was projected to exceed $2.5 million at the time of the ARPA spending plan was adopted. The Water Resources Department, in conjunction with Mayor's Office and DBF, have been in discussions about ways we can increase the capacity of our existing wastewater treatment plant to reduce the projected $2.5 million expenditure on our customers, which are ultimately the citizens of Berlin. After analyzing the infiltration and intrusion of our wastewater treatment system, it was determined that the town of Berlin could potentially extend the operating capacity of our existing wastewater treatment plant by approximately 5 to 10 years by changing the location of our metered effluent. The town of Berlin is currently working with the Maryland Department of Environment, MDE, to change the location of our metered effluent back to Bottle Branch Road, thereby reducing the INI created by the spray site lagoons against our capacity for the wastewater treatment facility. We do want to stress, and this is an important note for everybody here and everybody watching, that there is no change to the treatment of the wastewater or our wastewater treatment plant's operations or the spraying of the effluent at the town's spray sites. The only changes will be made to the location of the metered effluent used to calculate the town of Berlin's wastewater treatment capacity. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that being said, in conjunction with the smart meter installation, we would ask that you reallocate, and this is in the staff recommendation, reallocate the $1 million in funding previously designated for the treatment plant upgrade. The recommendation is to allocate $500,000 toward, an additional $500,000 toward the smart meter installation, bringing the balance of the project to $800,000. The previous allotment was $300,000 under the ARPA plan, and then a reallocation of the remaining $500,000 for the treatment plant upgrade for a new well that'll be determined in FY24 as far as the location.
Jamie?
Yes, sir.
A couple questions.
Okay.
So, I'm going to set aside the ARPA thing for a minute. It says in here, you can, by approximately 5 to 10 years, by changing location of the metered affluent. And then it says metered affluent back to Bottle Branch Road. So back to, was it moved before?
Yes, when we upgraded the plant, our metered effluent was located out at the spray site when we spray. We have 2 lagoons, one's 13 acres, one's 8 acres. 1 inch of rain on 1 inch of rain on 1 acre of land is 27,000 gallons. So in total, that totals right around 600,000 gallons per 1 inch rainfall. So we did the math and it averages out to be about 80,000 gallons per day over the last 5 years, is what Josh and all of us came up with. So we've asked NDE if they'll move the metering location just to the treatment plant to get a more defined answer of the treatment plant. That would save us about 320 EDUs, give or take.
So this 5 to 10 years estimate.
And $2.5 million.
Yeah, this 5 to 10 years estimate is based on current, or no, it's based on 5-year trends. Right?
Yes. Well, no, actually it's on 3, sorry. But we use 5-year trend on our rain data.
Okay, but so any potential growth is not a factor?
Well, that would bring our treatment plant down. Once we hit 80%, we have to start looking into design, and we're at, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think the paperwork was right around 70. And if we stay not at 320, if we could take the 320 put back on there, that would drop us down to probably right around anywhere between 60 and 65%. Okay. So that would buy us a little bit more time to get to the 750,000 gallons per day.
So time is the cost in the actual upgrade, right? The $2.5 million or north of. But it's also, with time, is paying down that debt service more to put us in a more favorable position for when the time of an upgrade does come. I want to note that before the spray sites were brought online, the town of Berlin used to discharge into Bottle Branch, which is why at the end of that staff report summary portion, we note that there is no change to operations, because when we did not have the spray sites, we discharged into Bottle Branch. So our argument to MDE is to take us back to the point of discharge as if we were going into the branch. We are not going to actually discharge into the branch, but it does not, the rainwater does not work against us in our calculation. Does that make sense?
It does, and this is not my area at all, so forgive me.
No, and it's very complex. I mean, thank God Josh has helped us walk through a lot. I mean, it's hard for me, and we deal with it every day. He's actually had to go to his Jason Lord, which is DBS, one of their partners, and he's helped us on it too, because this is very complex. And what we've asked MDE is, we're not asking for changing a whole lot, but just our meter location, because, and like we explained to him on the MDE the other day, what would it cost the taxpayers to upgrade the plant? And we didn't feel that it was really a burden that the taxpayers should see right now, because really, truly, with 80,000 gallons per day of rainfall, it really hurts us. So we're asking them to give us not a grace period, but some kind of
it more accurately represents our operation.
Yeah, because I mean, the treatment plants in Berlin and the 2 spray sites are at Newark and west of Berlin, and and they say, well, there's evaporation. Well, we're not evaporating 80,000 gallons a day.
The other side is that we currently, our EDU costs when you factor in water and sewer are almost $17,000.
$16,686 to be exact.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And my last question.
So, hold on one second. Another important distinction is that if we did that $2.5 million upgrade, those EDU fees would have to be increased to cover, significantly, to cover the cost of the improvement, which would then take us in a spot where our EDUs would no longer be competitive with outside agencies or municipalities. So that's an important distinction to take away as well.
And then my final question, Jamie, promise, on this is
this is worth lingering. This is a $2.5 million fee. This is worth lingering.
Are there any unforeseen, I don't know how it works, like permit or discharge fees or anything like that that's not included in these numbers?
We're in right now with the MDE right now for a renewal of our permit. So this is actually working right in conjunction. I mean, we have a little bit of cost with DBF, but I feel that it's very suffice to pay them to help us argue with MDE to save $2.5 million for this.
The savings, the $2.5 million, as well as the gain to our available EDUs.
Yes,
significant.
I just want to.
And it could be, and I'm using numbers from 2 to 3 years ago, so it could be 3 to 3.5 million now. So we're just speculating with what we were told 2.5 years ago. So I mean, you know well as I do, everything, as in Dave said, about the rails to trails has significantly jumped since I remember when they started. So I mean, as time goes, everything goes up for us also.
The other thing is that change or potential change would unlock $1 million in ARPA funds that we are really at the crux of this motion 2023-18 to approve the reallocation of those funds in addition to the request for proposal bid that we received from Goody Hill at $776,900. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes. Oh, okay, one more. The dug up on private and public sides for the test
That is-
fitting, what is that?
That is required by MDE with their new lead and copper rule. So we have to go so many feet beyond our meter and so many feet in front, document the material, and then we have to come up, there's a spreadsheet that Josh and them have, MDE's not really designed it yet, but we have to start using it by October 16th of 2024. We have to have this inventory done, so it should be getting ready to hit the market. I would say within the next couple of weeks, they should have it out to all the municipalities to follow by, but we have to document, and all they're looking at is, could there have been lead in, could the galvanized pipe had lead through it in the copper? So we did Nick and Josh and all of us had rode through the town, looked at GIS and everything, and there's approximately 1,022 meters that are in town that have to be touched or some kind of test pitting on both sides.
So I guess what does that mean to the resident? Like, are
So-
they going around digging?
They're going to dig on certain parts of town, like I'll use, for example, West Street, Broad Street, and some of the streets, like the older streets. You'll see somebody probably dig in front of your meter and then behind it. I mean, they'll backfill it, yes, it's all in part of the contract to backfill, to do the best they can to make it, some of the places they won't have to touch are like Decatur Farms, Jamestown, Henry's Mill, Henry's Green, because we know what the material is in the ground. So it's more or less piping material that we know that's before the 1972 Clean Water Act.
The other side of that too, Jamie, explain how those fittings are hard piped in, which is not a best practice currently.
No.
It was done to cut costs before, and we're trying to do it the correct way.
Yes, the meter pit, and that's the other thing is, we're only using, so there's 1,022 meters that are hard piped in, give or take. So we only use 10%. But we didn't want to go into it and then get hit with a bunch of change orders. So Josh and I just figured we'd use a 10% cost analogy that we would have to change out 10% of the 1,022 meters we had. So there's a possibility we could go in service and change out 120 meters, services and meter pits. That still leaves 900 out there that could possibly have a leak. But we do have to develop a plan after this year that we have to look at changing out 3% of all our lead line service replacement. We have to look at design or coming up with a cost to change out 3% every year until they're all completely changed out. Am I right or wrong about it?
The prudent part of this, I think, is that we're able to combine some of that work with the installation of smart meters, rather than doing them at two different times.
Yeah.
And yes.
And then you're looking at a cost difference too, because then you're mobilizing twice, where you're gonna have one company here mobilize once and do all the work.
So what we're requesting is the approval of the smart meter bid by Goody Hill at $776,900. And in that same motion, we would ask that you reallocate the $1 million of ARPA funding for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade toward an additional $500,000 toward the smart meter installation, and then the other $500,000 toward the additional new what would be well number 4.
Yes, sir.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Orris. Second by Councilmember Burrell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that it passed unanimously.
The new well. That is going to be up to Josh, and we'll hire a hydrogeological company to make sure where we're going to put it is the water suitable. We're not getting any contaminants. So there's a lot of go into it. We'll probably end up digging a couple test wells. It is in our budget for the capital this year. So we'll have that in our capital budget, and then we did receive a little bit of funding from MDE for well replacement, not a lot, but we did get a little bit of money from them, about $130,000. So,
We submitted for more in January, which we should find out very soon.
which they just released some stuff from stormwater today that we didn't get, but so I'm figuring if the stormwater was just released, we should start seeing some stuff for, we submitted for the reimbursements for the lead service line replacements and stuff like that, and we submitted 3 applications.
Thank you. That that motion to reallocate some of those funds to explore and drill a new well will hopefully put the town in a position that we are going to be better suited from the last time when we had a well that was down, which was vital to the town services. This will put us in a more favorable spot so that if that were to occur in the future, we wouldn't be so.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it, because I mean, I feel sometimes we've lacked on the water side, but we've looked at the wastewater, and I appreciate you all looking into the water side a little bit too, because I mean, if you don't have water, you don't have wastewater, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for your work. Up next is motion, so 3E, motion 2023-19, that's the Berlin Fire Company EMS FY24 agreements. You'll see that in your packet starting at page 157. I do want to note that in our work session, the group discussed on page 158, adding the language from the fire side, or from the EMS side, to read.
And other topics to share information regarding fire operations and financial needs.
Okay, that, and that this would be a work session of the entire mayor and council quarterly. Is there any other change that the group wanted to note for that?
Just to clarify, so that would read BFC will meet quarterly with the mayor and council.
In a work session to discuss the town adopting a funding formula for blank and capital apparatus replacement and other topics to share information regarding blank operations and financial needs.
And that blank would be fire and rescue.
Or EMS.
Yeah.
The EMS on the other side.
Yep. The agreements also include what was previously discussed, and that's the 7 business days for the information to the mayor and council before they meet with us. And then if you're looking at page 159, it has the information about making the fire company and EMS operations aware of development activities. I do want to note section 2, item 2, I think the 116,960 is remaining unchanged based off of our discussion. That's what we're going to submit to the fire company. Their ARPA funds remain untouched at this time, which is on page 160. For EMS, we already discussed section 1, item 2, which is the quarterly meetings. We discussed the 7 days that's still in this as well. The planning department's notification of new development activities. The document on number 5 on page 162 includes the addition that we want to see the calls broken out for Atlantic General Hospital. Page 163, section 2, item 2, the $283,040 remains unchanged. However, the town has met the 125, which is covering half of the 4-person, or which is covering half of the 2 additional personnel for 24 hours. That has been met. And on section 3, we noted the correct dates of July 2023 to June 30th, 2024. And I think that's it in a nutshell. Take a motion to approve if there is one.
Motion to approve Berlin Fire Company EMS contracts with the recommended changes.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Nur and a second by Vice President Burrell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that it passes unanimously. Up next is motion 2023-20, Electric Utility Apprentice Program Partner Participation, and our Electric Utility Director, Tim Lawrence, is going to run for it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd just like to point out that this actually started back in August of 2022. Right now, we have 3 apprentices that are attending our lineman training program. 2 of them are linemen, 1 of them is meter tech. And with the new position within the power plant, we'll have 4 apprentices going to school. What I've done here is the course that they go to now is basically It's recognized nationwide. It's like one of the top lineman training programs that there is. The only issue is that it's not recognized by the state of Maryland as a official state-sponsored training program. So I reached out to a guy named Mr. Bob Zimmerhoff, which he is the apprentice navigator for Maryland Apprenticeship Training Program with the Maryland Department of Labor. And I went through how we could possibly move towards becoming the first municipality in the state of Maryland to sponsor a apprenticeship training program officially. So we would be the first municipality to do that in the state of Maryland. Right now, Choptank Electric, they are an approved apprenticeship program, but they're an investor-owned type utility. They're not a municipality. We actually reached out to the training facility to see if they would be interested in handling themselves becoming the state sponsor, and they really did want to get involved in that because they take care of so many different, like A&N Electric goes there, Seaford, Milford Lewis, all those guys. So they really didn't want to take on that extra burden. So I had met with Mr. Zimmerhoff and discussed how we could do it ourselves. And there wasn't that much to it, really. It just creates more paperwork and keeping up with the amount of hours, because you have to have so many working hours in certain categories, that type of thing. So overall, to sum it up, Kelsey has been really involved in it with me, and Mary has also. And to make this happen, basically I'm looking for approval to move from to a state sponsorship. We would be the first ones. This also opens doors for multiple avenues to grant funding for the training to help pay for it. And the financial impact to the town would really be no financial increase whatsoever beyond the normal employee salaries, benefits, and training costs. It puts a little more burden on me to keep up with all the stuff that goes with it. But I'm actually very familiar with it where I was at Virginia. I did it for 20 years. Our course was recognized by the state of Virginia, so I handled all of it back then, so I'm kind of used to it. So I'm just asking for approval to become a state sponsor.
Tim, I remember when you first brought this up, it was last year's budgeting process of wanting to take this on, so thank you for taking it through an idea to inception and for spearheading this project. It goes a long way.
Thank you.
We'll take a motion to approve if there is one.
2 questions.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Can you describe for me what it means to be a state sponsor? And the second question, will there be any liability to the town?
No, the only liability is that we are going to make sure that our employees, our linemen, our meter technicians, our power plant apprentice are properly trained to be the best that they can be. And by doing this, you're basically giving the employee an incentive. It helps with employee retention. They basically know we have their back, that we're going to make sure they're taken care of and well trained. And plus, in the state's eyes, as far as they look at it, as we're taking one step further to make sure that we're doing everything properly. I have to keep control of how many hours and keep a database on, let's say they change out a pole out here that's broke off, for example. Every day I've got to look at how many hours that they worked on that, and then that is all reported to the state. They have to have, 8,000 hours of on-the-job training in different tasks that they do. Then you have to have so many hours of classroom training, which is provided by the lineman school now. So all that is officially documented and turned over to the state of Maryland. But then it also assures that part of that is that the employees, with the new pay study, it was just done, that with the state of Maryland, you have to spell out basically how much a percentage of a rate that they get for each step that they go through. Like right now, for example, when we just had an employee today that completed step 1 of the lineman training program. Well, what we do is we sit down and we look and we think, okay, 4 years out, that employee is supposed to be making this amount of money. So we have to figure out for this first step, which is the very beginning, how much of a percentage of a bump increase do we give them, knowing at the end of it it's going to be there. Well, now that spells it out, what they'll actually get. Because we know at the end with the pay study where it's going to end up at. So that also helps the employee. Say we go to hire somebody and they realize that we are a state-sponsored apprenticeship training municipality. They know from day one this is what they make. They know each time they pass a step that they're going to have this a certain amount of increase, which that helps keep retention, keeps your employees working. They just know it's a good environment to do that.
Can I add to what Tim has stated? So for the record, you guys approving this today would still need to go before the state board, and they would have to approve it. So that meeting is taking place at July 11th?
Yes, I'm supposed to, they basically have a mayor and council board, just like you do. I have to go before them and basically talk about how I'm going to administer the program, keep up with all the hours. Kelsey's already told me that she really doesn't have time to do all that.
I said, you're tracking your guys' hours. I'm very supportive.
So I'm going to end up taking care of all that. Just one other note, you're aware that Caleb Hunter just graduated recently. They are going to grandfather him. So all I have to do is present the hours and all that.
And he is kind of the one that got the ball rolling on this. He was concerned that not being state recognized, was like he couldn't do it here. And we were like, you can still do it. It's just not, like, no municipality is state recognized. So Bob with the state has been super helpful because he really wants a municipality to be, a first sponsor. And we did make sure that becoming a sponsor wouldn't make us liable to do any training for other organizations or anything like that, or any logging of any other municipalities' time. And they said we could do something like that if we wanted, but we do not at this point.
Well, we found out that several employees from Virginia, Delaware go to the same school. Well, all those other states are state-recognized sponsors, those municipalities. And then we found out in Maryland that Maryland did not have a municipality that was state-sponsored. So this is how that all came about.
Yeah. And on those figures too, we discussed as far as salary with Bob. He said go a little lower on those than what you probably would actually pay, but he said once you enter into the state contract, he said yes, things can be amended with votes and stuff like that. But he said what you're putting down that you're going to pay someone, you do have to stick to. So he said go a little lower than what you would actually be paying. So we did. We took the pay study data and we went just under it, and then kind of kept each step under what we would actually, be paying someone. But he said just to play it safe because you never know if something would change.
Well, thank you both for your work on this. It goes a long way. It really does.
Yeah, it also helps with recruitment. When we go to hire somebody, they'll really look at that and think that's where I want to be.
Very good job. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Take a motion.
Motion.
A motion by Councilmember Green, a second by Councilmember Nichols. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, let the record reflect that motion 2023-20 passes unanimously. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Up next is agenda item 4, which is the reports from the town administrator and department.
Two things very quickly. I have let you know, but I'm now letting everyone know, to please congratulate Natalie. She has recently completed a year-long course of study at the University of Baltimore Schaefer Center for Public Policy, Virtual Maryland Certified Public Manager class.
Congratulations.
And secondly, just on behalf of the department heads and all the town employees, I want to thank you all for the consideration you've given in this year's budget process, as always, but in particular the wage and salary study and the incorporation of that this year. That is greatly appreciated.
Any questions or comments regarding the town administrator departmental reports?
Yeah, I have a couple, Mary. Can you just follow up, if you can, with the Board of Elections meeting that's been postponed?
Previously, discussion had been held, and not for the first time this past election year, about possibly moving the election polling location to the same location as the national, state, county. It would not mean that the elections are being run by the state. Literally, it would be located in a hallway or another room outside the main election. But it means that Berlin voters, as they go in to vote for national, state, county elections, are passing right by the Berlin elections. And so the idea being to increase voter participation. Ocean City does it very similarly. There are a lot of questions that have to be answered before it can get to that point. So it's not a done deal, it's just something that we're looking into.
The other complication with that is that Ocean City voters go to one location.
Yes, I think that
Town
that is
voters
actually
go to
going to
multiple
be,
locations.
that's probably going to be our sticking point.
And it would be an increased cost for administering an election for us, yeah.
Yeah, we're examining it. We're looking into it. If it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out.
I replied to
Yes.
this,
And I had sent a similar thing to the town administrator privately.
some things are better off not fixed.
Yeah, it's a question that gets raised, so at least we'll be able to say we've looked at it and here's the result.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything to ask the questions.
And then I just have some questions for in departments. I think I've answered it, or I looked, but Ivy isn't here, so she's seeking sponsorship for the fireworks. There's only one verbally committed, but it looks like we do have them covered, or we have half of them covered, is that why we
I
got
am
sponsorship?
not sure. She did this report obviously
Okay,
before she went on
yeah.
vacation, so that may have changed in the interim.
Okay, all right. I'll wait for that one. And Jimmy Charlie. And Jimmy. But Jimmy, one thing I noticed, and I wanted to touch base with you at the bathtub races, the new vehicle safety barriers. Would it be possible to put a cone or a big thing on both ends because the hitch sticks out and people were hitting their shins? So is that possible to do that? Okay, thank you. And Jamie, the pump at Franklin Knoll, what, set for repairs, do you have an ETA on?
No.
Okay.
They're waiting on parts, the electrical parts, like Tim said, they're always running behind.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments for the town administrator or department report? All right, up next are any comments from the public. Anyone wishing to address the mayor and council, please come forward. State your name and street name and the subject you wish to speak. There is yes, just come forward, name, street name.
Marie Delong, West Street. I'm here about the change in format for the town meetings. I sent you an email regarding this and was told you would be discussing this with the council. I never received a reply from you. In my email, I said, I did what you suggested and Googled First Amendment audits and did not see anything that required the change in format for our council meetings. I couldn't find an instance in Maryland that a council meeting had been disrupted by anyone like that. I asked for links along those lines. The biggest threats by these people are just videoing public servants in their offices and other public places. I don't see what the pressing need for this is at this time. I have agreed with many of the changes that you as mayor have made over the years, but this one is one I cannot abide. To take away the ability to ask questions and get an answer makes the meeting impersonal and imperious. To me, it shuts down any communication between the council and the town that they are representing. You never gave any examples of meetings in Maryland being disrupted by so-called First Amendment auditors. At the last meeting, you told me that I am lucky to comment at all since other places in our area didn't allow it. That certainly gives me no satisfaction. I find the use of First Amendment auditors ironic. To keep you and the council comfortable and not having to answer questions you would prefer not to deal with, you are taking away my First Amendment rights and a long-held tradition of dialogue at meetings between the council and the public who are in attendance. To tell me these are the times we are living in is ludicrous. You are creating these times, and I deeply resent it. I truly hope this move is not an answer to the open meeting citations that you have had to deal with. Those complaints are valid citizen concerns and should be treated accordingly. That was one issue. As to the agreement with the railroad, we have paid $1,500 for 6 years to reserve the right to the bikeway to nowhere. What precautions is this town taking to protect the users of the bikeway once they reach Evans Road? Are you aware of how fast the cars go on that road? In reading over the agreement, it appears there is insurance that the railroad requires as part of the agreement. How much does that cost and where is that money coming from? How will you guarantee the railroad that the bikeway will not be misused? How will police monitor skateboards and electric vehicles on the path? Who pays for any damages to the bikeway? Where does that fall in the budget? We always seem to want these projects, but with very little dialogue from anyone but the business sector of the town. And the only other thing I have to say is about the easterly. I don't know how you're doing that. It's going to, I've sent you all pictures. I know it's going into the ditch that is existing, so it seems to me you're going to have to fill to raise it and then create a whole nother ditch to cause the flow to go the way it's supposed to. And I hope that is what the plans reflect. I want to know if there's a way that we can review these plans since it's been sent for the grant. And that's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the mayor and council? Yes, just come forward, name and street name and subject on which you would like to speak, please.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Jane Johnson, Skinner Lane. I just had a quick concern. I just came back from school over the summer, and I spent a lot of time learning about invasive species in Maryland and on the Eastern Shore especially. And I've come home and noticed that there are a lot of invasive species choking out some of our trees, shrubbery, etc. One big one being English ivy. I've seen a lot of it, especially on the side of our roads. I have seen some efforts, hopefully by the town, cutting up some of the English ivy in our park specifically, Stephen Decatur Park I should say. And I'm wondering if there are any additional efforts from the town to tackle not only these invasive species, but other invasive species as well. That's about it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address the mayor and council? Okay, if not, we'll move on to comments from the council. Vice President Burrow.
Two things.
Yes, sir.
First thing is, I think when it becomes necessary to have an email vote, that should be shared with the public. At least we could have who made the motion, who seconded it, and the vote on the motion. My second thing is the number of emails that I received related to the town. I really would not like us to be a town that is governed by emails. I think when we share opinions and ideas by way of email, it kind of limits our interaction with the public. I think that the number of emails that we have to digest between meetings is overwhelming. I would like us to try and curb that something.
Can you make a motion to do away with email? Town administrator and I think all the staff would love it. We could get multiple.
You know, and it is very, very time consuming to try to digest all of that stuff.
And I think the volume of digital information that we get is reflected in the staff requests that we see within the departments for asking for help. I mean, outside of the new positions, Mary and I get departments that are coming in all the time that are saying, hey, look, we want to restructure or help manage the flow of this information. It's felt everywhere, and it's a pain of our current environment.
Some of it, unfortunately, I think it's just the nature of the times. It's.
I'd like to go back to the time.
Third one.
Yes. And it's like you try not to respond after hours, but if you don't, like today I came in and I was reading emails till almost 3 o'clock. It's just crazy. It's like, this is nuts, you know, and they're coming in while you're reading.
It's just awful.
I agree.
And I sent an email,
I know.
and Kelsey replied over the weekend, and I did not mean for you to do that. I did not mean to interrupt your weekend or your time with your family away from work. And please accept my apology.
No, I didn't
And
have
never
to
feel you
respond.
have to reply to my email until Monday.
Normal business hours.
Third, I would like to share an opinion, and this is my opinion and what I think, and it needs no explanation, and I will accept no questions. But, Mayor, and this is to Mayor and the members of the council, as I'm sure you are aware of the open meeting complaints that have been most recently lodged. After digesting the bottom line of those complaints, please note that I will no longer be able to participate in closed meetings of the fire department contract or funding discussions and negotiations with Palmer Gillis of the Heron Park purchase. Additionally, I think the subcommittee of the council for non-public negotiations with Palmer and discussions of the community center is not in keeping with the intent of the open meeting standards. I am now of the opinion going forward, any discussion of contracts after their award should be and must be held in open meetings. It should not be the policy of the town that during work sessions, public input is not allowed, but should be allowed with a successful motion of the council. It is my most sincere hope that compliance with the above will foster an air of deeper trust and involvement of our public. Thank you again, that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Nerk?
Yeah, I'm gonna hand this out. Pass those down, I wanna make sure Dave gets one. Everybody over there. So recently I was in Virginia Beach, and as I was driving through I started seeing these signs on various properties, and I identified each one as a short-term rental property. And then on the sign addition, it said if you have a problem, call this number. If you have general complaints, call this number. And I thought it was a very effective way for the public to reach out to the powers that be if there is a problem with those short-term rentals. So I took it upon myself to look on their ordinance and find out how they came about these signs. And apparently, it's part of their short-term rental ordinance to provide these signs. So the signs are 2 by 2, they're 4 square feet. The person who is setting up the short-term rental has to pay for the sign, and it's placed right in front of their property, so everyone driving by can see it. And they specify the color, the fonts, it gets into great detail here. So what I'm looking for is the council's kind of endorsement to amend our ordinance to include a sign of this nature in Berlin. Because I think it's a good way.
It's in the ordinance already.
I don't even know if it needs an amendment.
Nobody has a sign like this.
Ours says.
Nobody has one yet, but it's in our ordinance.
What is the?
We put in the ordinance like a sign or a medallion visible from the street.
And the address side of the property.
The address side facing the street, just like a 911 address. It's in our ordinance.
Does it specify the size?
No, but we
Does
made
not.
it.
Does not
We're gonna make
specify
it.
the
So
size.
this is good.
Okay.
This is a good example.
But a 2 by 2 sign is in our ordinance for a home occupation. I think that's rather large. I know some homes where it could be a licensed unit for rental are far back off the street, others are not. We could do it 2 by 2.
These were all placed right up by the sidewalk, so you could clearly see them.
So you didn't have to like enter the property?
Yeah, you didn't have to go and read it on the front door of the property setback. It was clearly visible.
They were in the lawn?
In the lawn, yeah. Like a yard sign.
Yeah, it says posted on the building or other location approved by the zoning administrator.
The ones I saw.
But ours does, I mean, to Dave's point, it does reference a sign.
It does.
On the address side, so this is
It
really
does.
good. The one thing I would say
It's
is
another
that,
thing that hasn't been implemented yet.
but I mean, this could be done. Now, I see your point that it could be harder to read if the property is set back.
Right.
So I think the only change, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, would be that maybe the cost of the sign for replacement. Because I think that ordering,
The cost is on that, right?
well, not currently in the licensing, it's not. So I think that what we would have to do is for the properties that we currently have, we say that a permit should be affixed to the address side. Now, we could make it look like this, 2 by 2 might be a little big for a sticker, but if we did the signs, Dave could get a quote on what 50 of these would be, and we could assess or put in the ordinance what it would cost to replace them. I think that would probably be
I think whether it's 2 by 2 or 12 by 18, something, whatever substantial has to be out there, so the public can see it.
We didn't specify a size, but we did put that provision in.
Right, and clearly identify what should be on that sign, and they specify the font, everything, I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the only thing I would add is the Town of Berlin logo, just to clean it up. But I would say let's get a quote for 50 of the signs. Let's issue them to the folks that have already applied. Keep it as part of the licensing fee that we already have.
50 may be a lot. I'm just
25?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
25. And then what we'll do is let's look at the cost of the sign. Let's look at
That's true.
Let's look at the cost of the sign and come up with what that replacement cost should be, and we'll put it on as a change maybe to the ordinance. As a replacement cost. The sign's gotta be there, but if it's defective and Dave says you need a new one, this is the cost for your new sign.
So you're considering the initial
Would be on us.
would be as part of their license.
That's what we figured as part of the initial application and license. It was included.
I do too.
Very effective.
Very easy. I think it's straightforward.
It answers.
Thank you. All right, anything else, Councilmember Murray?
That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichols?
Jaden, did I mispronounce your name? I was about to say, I'm sorry, because it's 7 o'clock, and, yeah. The invasive species, I was thinking about what you said, and I know that a big part right now of what our horticulture
Advisory.
committee, that group is doing when they're out replanting the parks and things, are trying to get rid of the non-native species. So I think, I'm not passing the buck, but I think that group would, and even Jimmy Charles and his crew, would be a phenomenal source to reach out to as far as finding out, you know what I mean, what they're doing to pull out the invasive pieces and to bring in the more native species. Because I know in a couple of conversations I had, I know that Henry Park is going to be replanted with native species, and like the yucca and things like that are gonna be pulled out. And I even did it at my house, pulling out those things and getting rid of, so.
The other point, I think that's a great idea. We do have Victoria Spice is actually a member of the horticulture team. She is trained in getting rid of invasive species. She actually teaches the course to staff and other municipalities. So maybe while you're here for the summer, connect with Jimmy Charles, our Public Works Director.
We do have a seasonal position open.
There we are. You looking for a job? You looking for a job? See Jimmy
We
Charles?
would gladly have your expertise in helping us.
I love it, I love that one.
All right. Jimmy Charles jumped on that.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Councilmember Nichols. Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Councilmember Morris?
Yeah, just real quick, a couple things. So when exactly, Ms. Valong mentioned the lack of dialogue. So when exactly is this supposed to happen? Like now? Like with the council answers the questions that come up in public comment?
If you so choose,
All right. Well, I was going to suggest the same thing to Councilmember Nichols for the trees. And then, Dave, you had mentioned earlier in the meeting tonight that these design plans for rails and trails will come back around, correct? So we can have an opportunity to review them, sit down with the public and show, and then including like all the stormwater, because, okay.
You also have a copy of those already.
Well, we do, but I'm looking a little deeper.
Until we know
Until
whether
we
we have
get
a
it,
grant
yeah.
fund, there's not a lot
I
of
understand.
sense in devoting too much energy to it.
No, I understand, but these are, stormwater.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So Chief left, but I wanted, in his report, he did mention we had our little community meeting there about Broad, and I wanted to thank him for a wonderful presentation. And I wanted to remind, kind of piggybacking on that it appears to be summer-like weather, except for now it's raining. But folks will continue to be biking, walking, so please watch your speed, or don't. Don't speed. Look out for pedestrians and bikers. Yeah. And just general safety, summertime awareness. I wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to actually Councilmember Green. I don't want to take away from his comments, but
Go ahead.
But taking information from the Stormwater Community Meeting that we had here with our engineers, he was able to help with the Stormwater Crusade, as it were, which directly affects residents in part of District 2 over on Abbey, Westminster, and West area, particularly with the draining concern behind Worcester Prep. So I wanted to thank you for that, and also thank you for kind of keeping me in the loop and on that. So. And just my last thing, finally, the budget is apparently done, and someone asked me what it was like, and I said it's like an onion. There's so many layers, and it's complex, it sometimes makes you want to cry, but in a good recipe, it can yield great things. So onward and forward we go. That's all I have.
I like the onion analogy, because you're right on there.
Thank you. Councilmember Green?
Onward and upward, right? So definitely Marie's comments, I think, so since I've been on the council, the most comments I've heard about was in response to our meeting that we had. The skate park was discussed and short-term rentals, and the feeling that the public's opinions didn't matter. Which, I mean, I actually know that that's not the case up here. We all don't feel that way. But so I would ask for us to consider some flexibility to our agendas. I mean, I totally embrace the concept of what I think was intended, you know, to professionalize the meetings in some ways and formalize and keep government moving forward. But I think it may have gone just a little bit too far, quite frankly, and I just hope that maybe we would consider such as things like however Herring Park is going to look at the end of this month. We believe that will be a lot of discussion. And I don't know, you know, at that point if it is an update or if it's something further, but I believe there will be people here for that, and that maybe we should consider an agenda item where it's on the agenda, and I shared this with you, but you know, maybe we do put a little discussion just to that, because you know, the short-term rental in the skate park, there's people were here really just to deal with that, you know, and if we could have some flexibility to allow those folks to weigh in on the matter before them at the agenda, it would be specific to that. Just trying to find, I mean, hoping we can find a middle ground, quite frankly. Like I said, it was the most questions and comments I had heard since I've been up here, so just wanted to say if we could consider that, please. Then the bathtub races, I want kudos to our electric team. They did a great, they were fun, Mario and Luigi, and you know, again, it's the same thing. You know, started raining really hard, right, 10 minutes after the race. The hay bales were heavy. You guys, I mean, we went to dinner and came back out, and it was, you didn't even know it was there. So congratulations to them. The chamber did a wonderful job. And I actually attended an event that I'd never been at. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, the Memorial Day Parade. Saw you, Dean and Jack there. And if you haven't been to that, I recommend that. That is a lot of fun. It's a community pride. And Zach, you were in it. You know, you got, I think I got called a cousin by somebody. To tell you the truth. You know? It was just a wonderful, and Shanique, I assume you were there too as well down the street. But yes.
Right sitting right in my front yard.
There you go. So then just one other thing. A lot of governments right now are pivoting and reacting to the cannabis law change. Ocean City, for one thing. You know, in the law, there's it says that municipalities can prohibit the operation of on-site consumption establishments. You know, this is a wave of the future. I think at some point it's only a matter of time before we get some sort of request like that, and it's just, I'm not going to weigh in on my opinion right now, but I think it is something that we should consider, ask our town attorney to look at this. There are governments that are pivoting and reacting to this, trying to prevent, they call it weed bars, you know, from opening up. And just think it's something that we should, if we could look into it in some way and see. Again, Ocean City, I think they just passed second reading last week, so that's in effect, so we have some in the model after. Thank you all.
Now, are you asking for an analysis of potential options? Are you asking for a discussion item regarding prohibition? What are you just bringing it to our attention?
Well, it's a good question. I guess it would be discussion of whether or not we wanted to put, so what Ocean City did was, you have to have a license to sell, and there are no dispensaries in Ocean City currently, but they know that it's coming, or they believe it's coming. So I guess a discussion then, and I don't think it's a time-sensitive thing. The law does go into effect July 1st.
They want to be proactive rather than
Yeah,
reactive.
and that would be my thought. So discussion, town attorney, whoever you all want to go about this.
Is that something you think you can compile, or is it too much in its infancy right this moment?
Well, I guess the first thing I would do, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, would be to, I would call Heather, who's the town attorney in Ocean City, and ask to see what they have drafted and done, and then bring it before the council.
And I can touch base with MML to see if there's anything else.
MML is paying attention.
Yeah.
And with things like this, that's always my philosophy. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We're not the only town needing to deal with this issue, so tap our resources.
But definitely something that we need to proactive.
Thank you.
Regarding Heron Park, at this time, it's planned to have a public comment period after we discuss and have a presentation to get some public feedback, depending on what level of presentation we have.
So that would be in the agenda?
Correct. It would be, it would delineate public comment in that section.
See, that's exactly what kind of was.
It's hard to speculate. With the skate park stuff, it was a presentation
Yeah.
that I think was misunderstood as far as maybe interpreted as an action item when it was labeled as a presentation. So we apologize for any confusion that may have existed because of that. But if we anticipate something like that occurring, we can try to put in a public comment portion, which formalizes and cleans up the process.
Right.
The difficulty is that we can't always speculate what the public comment may be in reference to, so.
But we're sitting here and we are supposed to be sensitive to the needs and requests of our public. I think public comment should be allowed with a successful motion of the council, regardless if it's not included in the agenda or not. If a council member
we've done that in the past. We have done that in the past.
So led to make the motion to allow public comment, I think it should be heard.
We've done that in the past successfully, and there's no problem with that. But it would follow the same process. No problem. All right, anything else, Councilmember Reed?
No, thank you.
No problem. Up next is comments from the mayor. I do want to say thank you to all of you for your help and your input in the budgeting process. Thank you to the council for your feedback. I also want to say good job on the bathtub races. Steve, I see that you carried on the tradition well. The junior council members typically partake in the catching or being the obstacle at the end of the race.
Long story to that.
You did a great job.
Our dancing comp is very
Yes.
welcome to have.
We missed the dancing Sergeant Brad.
They missed it.
No, he was out of town.
That's why I was.
So thank you to everybody, and I appreciate that and the budget process. And that concludes my comments. Any comments from the press?
Move to adjourn.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that we are. You all not me. You all not me. Hey, JD. I'm good, man. I can run that.